How about Houston in the Final Four? You have a great opportunity for prop swappers right now to make money with that ticket.
We have a ticket on Houston that odds a plus 965. It would cost you $385. I am seeing Houston at 6-1 at MGM right now, and we're giving you 9.65 to 1 odds on Houston. It is the best price in the world on Houston basketball.
So if you like Houston, buy that ticket now at PropSwap. We've also got Masters Week coming. Major League Baseball is underway, and PropSwap is perfect for both of them.
Season win total, say you bet the over on Phillies at the numbers around 80. They're having a good first quarter of the season. Sell that over ticket on PropSwap in May for 80% more than you paid for it.
It's the perfect time of the year. The Final Four, the Masters, the start of the baseball season. Down the stretch they come in the NBA. Don't do a day without checking out PropSwap.com and download the PropSwap app today. Luke Burgandy, great stuff as always, pal.
Thanks, Mike.
And let me get right back to you. Sandra, those banners go out tonight. Can you pack them?
Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business thin.
On machine 4?
Like at Monica's Print Shop. To fulfill orders on time, she needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
My stomach.
Don't worry, I've got you covered.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
What's that?
It's Pepto-Bismol Chews.
Pepto-Bismol's in a chew?
Yeah, they taste great and provide fast relief. And you can always have Pepto-Bismol handy.
Ooh, let me try it.
Try Pepto-Bismol Chews for fast relief.
Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, upset stomach, diarrhea.
Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Pull up to Church's today for boneless that's bringing it all. Bringing buttermilk marinated juiciness and all white meat deliciousness. Try our new Texas tenders or chicken sandwich with new smoky honey Q sauce for just $3.99. Church's, bringing that down home flavor. Offer valid at participating locations.
South Jersey's home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
Oh, I like that.
Me too. WENJ HD Millville, Atlantic City. A town square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is 97.3 ESPN. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Mike Gill.
And a good Monday, everybody. Welcome inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. And, of course, you can watch the show live at 97.3 ESPN.com. I'm your host, Mike Gill, taking you till 6 o'clock tonight. Josh Henning is producing today's show, and you out there as we, boy, what a weekend it was. The weather is beautiful outside, by the way. How come I am not hearing this music in my ears? Is something going on with my hearing? I'm not, I know I can't hear very well, but we'll figure it out. All right. So what we got going on, of course, is a interesting weekend. The Phillies sweep the Braves. I feel like that has been kind of the, I don't know. Do you guys feel the same way that I felt this weekend? Like the Phillies swept the Braves, and it felt like there was this actual feeling of excitement all of a sudden about Phillies baseball, right? Oh, I figured it out. There we go. I think I figured it out anyway. Yep, there we go. It felt like there was all this excitement this weekend about Phillies baseball. It really did. And I'll tell you why it feels different, the Phillies. Because of the way they did it. That doesn't mean they're going to do it all the time. Greetings. It doesn't mean they're going to do it all the time. But what it does mean is I can at least say for one weekend of Phillies baseball that I was like, this looks different. This feels different. Nola pitched. Of the three guys, I thought Nola pitched the worst, to be honest with you. You had Nola. You had Wheeler was just absolutely dominant on Saturday, and Eflin was probably just a notch below Wheeler. Wheeler had 10 strikeouts. I think Eflin had 8 strikeouts. Nola, I think, had 6 strikeouts. So if you were like ranking the weekend pitching performances, it was Wheeler, Eflin, Nola, which is a good sign. I have been high on Eflin this year. I think Eflin is primed to kind of have a big season this year. But for the most part, I thought the most impressive thing of the weekend was the fact of the matter of their bullpen was just absolutely different. Their bullpen did not give up a run the entire weekend. Think about that. The bullpen did not give up a run the entire weekend. Pretty crazy when you think about how awful their bullpen was just a year ago. They came in, got the job done. I think two of the games that happened this weekend, their bullpen probably would have cost them last year. Opening day, Nola gives up the homer. They take him out of the game. They would probably have to go to the bullpen last year, cough up that lead. They never get the chance to tie that game or take the lead in the 10th inning. And then, Nola was cruising until the homer. No question. I thought Nola pitched well. Now, keep in mind, I thought that he got helped out with. Now, it's not me criticizing Nola at all. I don't want the people to take that. I just thought of the three guys. That's how good the pitching was this weekend, that Nola was the third of the three. That's a great thing, that Nola was the third of the three in terms of effectiveness. I thought the wind helped out Nola on a couple of balls that may have been knocked out of the park on a normal day. The wind was howling on opening day. From what I understand from some of the people that were up there covering the game, were saying the wind was really howling up there on opening day. And a couple of those balls that were hit may have been out on a normal day. But I thought Nola also got helped out by a little bit of leather. The catch that Alec Bohm made at third base is one that you should probably be putting in the highlight reel for a web gem of the year. He absolutely stabbed one, and maybe even a run, absolutely a run. I think there was a runner on third base when that ball was ripped down the line. But this isn't, bashing Nola. I thought Nola was very good. I just thought Eflin and Wheeler were better. I thought Wheeler was the most dominant guy of the weekend. How about Hector Neris? He came in all 3 games. Hector Neris, of all guys, came into all 3 games and didn't give up a run on Alvarado. We talked about him with Bob last week. He's going to be a roller coaster ride. I think you saw that on Thursday's game. Wiggled his way out of it. Archie Bradley. With Bradley, Neris, Alvarado, those are the 3 guys. And I've been talking about Connor Brogdon. I think Brogdon is the guy that if Neris falters, don't be surprised if they go to Brogdon as the closer at some point this year. All right, so there was all that. There was a couple other things. This weekend, the Phillies are 3-0. They're going to win the World Series. You feel so much better. But what it is this. It gets you off to that good start. Remember, they swept the Braves, I think, in 2019 to start the season, if memory serves me correct. I think the Phillies swept the Braves in 2019 to open the season. They went 3-0. The Braves were 0-3. The Braves won the division. The Phillies fell short. But the way that they won felt different. That's all. This isn't me proclaiming the Phillies are in this for the long haul. This isn't me telling you it's a different Phillies team all of a sudden. But what I am telling you is the way they won these games are games they probably would have lost last year. Just because of the nature of the close games, they were all tight games where you had to rely on the bullpen. The Phillies' first season now in the books. They're 3-0. They sweep the Braves. They get the walk-off extra inning hit on opening day. 2 dominant pitching performances on Saturday and Sunday. I wouldn't say Nola's was a dominant pitcher performance, but the stellar work from the remade bullpen. How about these numbers for you? All right, so I did a little research on this. Phillies pitchers walked 5 batters. They had 35 strikeouts. The 5 walks issued, only 1 came from a starting pitcher. Best in baseball over the first 3 games. 0.96 ERA, second best in baseball. 0.61 whip and 128 batting average against, best in baseball. They didn't do it against some patsy. They did it against one of the best teams in baseball, one of the best lineups in baseball. Extra impressive. Phillies swept the Braves that season and started 5-1. They finished the year 81-81 just 2 years ago. So again, let's not go crazy, but what is different is what I just read. The pitching is the bullpen is different. It's just better. Nola set the tone. He allowed 2 runs in 6 2/3. Wheeler was dominant, 7 scoreless innings, 1 hit with 10 strikeouts, and then Eflin allowed just the solo home run to Travis d'Arnaud. How many times has Travis d'Arnaud been traded? Anybody have the answer to that? Like 5? He was a Philly at one point. I think he was part of the Holiday deal, to be honest with you, if memory serves. Eflin gave up 4 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. But the story was the bullpen. They have not allowed a run in 7+ innings of work. Collectively, in 8 appearances so far this year, meaning 8 different times they were called on, the bullpen is 1-0, 0.00 ERA, 0.86 whip, and they have 11 strikeouts and just 4 walks. It's been phenomenal the way that they have really helped this team out. Hector Neris, by the way, has been perfect. A scoreless frame, struck out the side on Saturday. So it is definitely a different feel about this team, right? Different feel about this team. If you're watching the show live, we have your comments loading up in the stream. If you're listening on the radio, 609-403-0973. Will Ham is watching on Facebook. Says, fans at the bank, great starting pitching, and the bullpen did not give up a run. 14 Ks and 1 walk from your starters. Depended a full 180. Let's hope it lasts. Hey, Will, no question about it. Your point is fantastic. Depended a total 180. Last year, who would they have called on in that situation? I mean, opening day, Brandon Workman wasn't here yet. But they had trash coming into those games last year. You think about this. By the way, Travis d'Arnaud was a Phillies first-round pick in 2007. He was traded in the Roy Halladay deal. I think he was traded from Toronto to the Mets in the deal that – who was it, the knuckleballer? Who'd the Mets trade? R.A. Dickey. I think he was in that deal, and then the Mets traded him. He's been all over the place, Travis d'Arnaud. But he was a Phillies first-round pick. He was another one of those Phillies prospects that was like going to be the number one – not he wasn't number one, but – you know, they had all these guys at a time. Yeah, but Will, great starting pitching. Bullpen did not give up a run, hasn't given up a run. That's the difference. They have not given up a run in 7 innings so far. Dominic was watching. What's up? Danuch, don't be fooled by one weekend. Still in desperate need of starting pitching. I don't think desperate is the right word. I don't think they're in desperate need of starting pitching. I like their top 3 guys. I kind of like Eflin. I think Eflin is an underrated guy. You know, Eflin to me, and I compare it to like, I'm not saying he's Joel Embiid level. He's not a Cy Young candidate. But this guy has won 25 games over the last 3 seasons. Now, keep in mind, last year was only a 60-game season, so he was 4-2, I think, last year. But 25 games he's won over the last 3 seasons. He was 24, 25. Now he's in his age. I think he was 25, 26, and now 27. It's a young kid winning 11 games, a young kid winning 10 games, and now he's kind of hitting his prime here. So I like the top 3. If they can get something from Moore or Anderson, that one of those guys can kind of be a, 9-9, 11-10, 10-11, something like that. I don't think they're in desperate need of starting pitching. Keep in mind, they still have Spencer Howard sitting in the minors, waiting his turn to be called on. So I have to disagree that they're in desperate need of starting pitching. They could use a bump, no question about it. They could use a bump, but I think they're going to go with Matt Moore and Chase Anderson until one of those guys really struggles. They want the 2 veteran guys in there to eat up some innings and then turn the rotation over and get it back to the top. They hope to win those 3 times. When those 3 guys pitch, they try to win 75% of those type of games. and then the back end guys win about 50-50. If you can get those two guys at the back end pulling their weight, holding their own, I don't think you're in desperate need of starting pitching. I think, you're starting pitching the top three, you're pretty good. You're just as good as everybody else, I think anyway. I think with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola, you don't have Jacob deGrom, but I think Wheeler as your 2 is better than the Mets 2. Carlos Carrasco, who's I think still hurt. But I think deGrom and Carrasco, deGrom is the better of the 2, but I think Wheeler's better than Carrasco is. I think you saw this weekend. I mean, Fried's good. Morton, I like Morton a lot too. He's solid. I think Wheeler's better than Morton. Ian Anderson's probably better than Morton, though. And they have him in the 3 spot. So I think if you look at that, and then Strasburg and Scherzer, I mean, Scherzer's better than Nola. And Strasburg and Wheeler, I would say, are, similar. I think Strasburg is a little bit bigger of a name than Wheeler. But the Phillies 3 are just as good as everybody else's 3 in the division. It's those 2 back-end guys that, look, we can't really even say who they are or what they are. We don't have that answer. Matt Moore hasn't pitched in the majors since 2019. Chase Anderson's kind of been a vagabond journeyman. Those 2 guys are going to be key, though. But I think Eflin's the key. Eflin's the key. If Eflin is really good, this team's going to be in the mix. Doug's watching down at Tampa. What's up, my man? 3 wins without Harper or JT as factors is eye-opening. I don't want to say eye-opening. Here's the problem with that. They won the games. That's the good part. The offense struggled a bunch. I think they scored 9 runs all weekend. So the eye-opening thing is that they were able to win. The eye-opening negative is the offense was bad essentially all weekend, except for, I want to bring this up, and I'm glad that you kind of transitioned, Doug, over to the offensive side of the ball. Alec Boehm, who started all 3 games, hit in the middle of the order, and they counted on him. In the series finale, Boehm had a pair of hits. He had the key single in the bottom of the 8th. It ends up being the game-winning single. But what Joe Girardi said afterwards was, quote, he's come through time and time again. You feel pretty good about him when he's in that spot. He's not going to try to do too much. That's why we have him in the middle of the lineup. Perfect. I love the fact that the Phillies, I don't want to say, look, people are like, well, you don't want to put too much pressure on the kid. The Phillies say, this kid can handle the pressure. Now, this offense struggled against Braves pitching. They scored 9 runs in 3 games. They have their hands full this week. They got to go and face deGrom tonight. I think it's Stroman tomorrow and then David Peterson in the rubber match. But the comment from Girardi that stood out is, we hit this kid in the middle of the lineup because he's been so good in those situations and he's not going to try to do too much. This is what I talked about leading into the season, why I like Boehm so much. Boehm is one of those guys who, remember last week we talked about the different hitting schools and the different train of thought in hitting, and this hitting school teaches this, and that hitting school teaches that, because that hitting school over there is teaching the same thing as the other 2, so I have to do something different. Boehm said, I'm not going to go to the new hitting school. I'm going to go to the old one, and I'm going to utilize that mindset. I'll hit it where it's pitched. It's exactly the comment that Boehm gave after the game yesterday. He literally said, I don't panic with 2 strikes. I hit it where it's pitched. Refreshing to hear. Alec Boehm, old school type of player. I hit it where it's pitched is exactly what he said. And that's why he's hitting in that big situation. It's nice to have a big name like Harper in the middle of your lineup, but honestly, I feel almost better when Boehm steps to the plate. Anybody else? Look, I'm not a Harper hater at all. I love Harper, the fact that he's on the Philadelphia Phillies. But he strikes out a lot in those situations. And Alec Boehm, you almost feel, is going to come through. Not every time. Obviously, no one comes through every time. I just love Boehm's approach. Love it. Hit it where it's pitched. Boom. Throw it to the outside part of the plate. I'll drive it to right field. Throw it on the inside of my hands. Boom. I swing and rip it over the left fielder's head. Throw it down the middle, hit it back up the middle. He's such a fundamentally sound swing. He's such a fundamentally sound approach. He's a breath of fresh air. What's up, Danucci? Girardi is a huge difference. Top 5 Major League Baseball manager. I'm not one to minimize the effectiveness that a manager brings to a baseball game. I certainly value that role. I think it's undervalued in sports on what we think. Well, I would almost say the baseball manager, people might go crazy with this one. I would almost say the baseball manager has more effect on a National League game, not an American League game, than an NBA coach does an NBA game. There is so much the National League manager does that plays a factor in a game, in a National League game. Not so much an American League game, not an American League game. I don't know that Girardi's a top 5 manager. I love the way he managed this weekend. He let his pitchers go. I'm a big fan of that. He let the pitchers go. Early in the season, I think every one of the Phillies pitchers went 7 innings into the 7th. He let Nola go to the 7th. He got pulled in the 7th. I thought Girardi had a good weekend. I did not think he had a good year last year. I thought Girardi did not have a good year last year. 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. So Phillies stuff kind of leading it off today, as it should. Baseball's back. Phillies sweep the Braves. Sixers split the weekend. Joel Embiid looked a little rusty in returning. We'll get into that. Paul Hudrick today, 3:20. Adam Kaplan inside the Birds going to join us for football at 4. Bob Wankel on the Phils at 4:40. Bob's going to join us all season long on Mondays and Fridays at 4:40 every Monday and Friday. So we'll talk Phillies with him. Just to put a little damper on this, the Phillies in 2019 swept the Braves. They allowed 11 total runs. This weekend, the Braves scored 3 runs total. So the pitching, much better this time around. However, 11 runs in 3 games is pretty darn good as well. But this bullpen, I think, is the difference over these last couple teams. This Phillies team has been good enough to make the playoffs 3 straight years, and they came up short 3 straight times. So this time around is a better bullpen, good enough to get them back to the playoffs for the first time since 2011. They took at least a nice step forward Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. Your Phillies thoughts, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. If you're watching the show live via Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, go to 973ESPN.com. You can watch the show live. You can leave your chats, live chat. We'll comment on your chats. We take the comment that you post on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, and we post that up on the screen so everybody can see it. We can all kind of react to it. It's a little different watching the show as opposed to just listening to the show. We like to get everybody involved. Will Ham's watching on Facebook, and he's right. First 13 games versus the National League East. Tough start. They got kind of screwed having to play the Mets with the Mets top of the rotation. Facing the Mets top of the rotation is a little different than facing the back end of the rotation. You get DeGrom instead of, realistically, I think Carrasco's still out. So you're going to face DeGrom tonight, Stroman. You would miss those guys. You might have seen DeGrom in the back end of the game. It would have been DeGrom, I think, against Nola in the last game. But you would have got Peterson and whoever their fifth guy is. Sports Bash brought to you by Matt Blatt Kia. They want to get you approved today. It's Matt Blatt Kia on the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. Hey, Doug, if half my face looks burnt, yeah, that's from that doubleheader on Saturday that I called. I said, man, half my face is pink. And I realized the sun was coming over the first base dugout and hitting me in the side of my head all day Saturday. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. All right, we're coming back. The Sixers split the weekend. Phillies conversation. Flyers had something encouraging happening over the weekend. Plus, I got some Eagles news on the over-under number of wins. All right? Eagles over-under for wins. Is this number a cause for optimism or pessimism? Stick around.
Westwood One is your exclusive home for the 2021 NCAA tournament. It's only fitting that a season unlike any other comes to a conclusion in the most unique circumstances. From 68 teams down to one, all in the same state. Every basket, buzzer beater, and bracket buster until a champion is crowned. Who will take home the title? Tune in to find out. All the excitement of March Madness right here.
It's the NCAA National Championship game tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 8 p.m.
If you're struggling with alcohol or drugs, Recovery Centers of America can help. RCA's local inpatient and outpatient programs are founded on science and delivered with heart from an expert caring team who will inspire and guide you every step of the way. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now to speak with a treatment advisor. At RCA, you'll be in a community that builds connections and fosters support from peers and RCA's team of medical professionals and recovery support specialists. At RCA's state-of-the-art campuses in Devon, PA and Mays Landing, New Jersey, they tailor your treatment to you and also offer specialized programs for patients with history of trauma, for patients who have achieved recovery but are experiencing a relapse, for young adults, adults 50 years and older, a confidential program for first responders and military, and a faith-based program. RCA answers the phone and accepts patients 24/7. And because it's local and in-network with insurance providers, treatment is affordable and accessible. Don't wait. Call 1-888-RECOVERY today.
Diabetes, high blood pressure, anxiety meds, everyone's on them. If you're a
All right, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Download the free mobile app. We'll give you the Sports Bash Cash code word today at 255, 355, 455, 555. It's a chance to win up to $10,000. A little Sports Bash stimulus, if you will. $1,000 every word. More words you enter, more money you can win. One lucky winner randomly selected at the end of the contest wins $10,000 or up to $10,000. So listen for the Sports Bash Cash code word at 55 after each hour, each day, starting at 9:55 all the way through 6:55. Josh and Game Night will give you today's final Sports Bash Cash code word of the day. I also, have live tickets to give away for tomorrow night's Flyers game. I've got 3 4-packs of tickets for tomorrow night's Flyers game against the Boston Bruins. We'll be giving those throughout the show today. So listen for your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets. You'll get to sit in a 4-pack with your family or friends. If you come together, you can all sit together in a pod. For many of you out there listening, might be the first time you're at a live sporting event in quite some time. So we have 3 4-packs to give away today on the Sports Bash. Listen for your chance to score them. I'm going to start giving them away in the next hour. All right? In the next hour, I will be giving away a 4-pack of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow night against the Bruins. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. All right, so a lot of Philly stuff to kind of start the show off today. The Bill and EHT is listening. Says Phillies will be fine, off to a great start. And if you have a team that believes in themselves and those bats will come alive, will surprise a lot of people. That bullpen was not only bad last year, but I think they had no confidence when they entered the game. They looked like they were going through the motions. Couple things there, Bill. You are right on multiple things there. That bullpen last year was not only bad, it was historically bad. And I think your point is very accurate. They had no confidence. It was, you know how like Zach Eflin said, I try to outdo the guy that pitched the day before and the day before. Like those two guys pitch really well. So now I want to pitch well. We hear that a lot from pitchers. The problem was every guy in the Phillies bullpen was bad. So it was like, oh, that guy had a rough outing. Now it's my turn. It carried over to every guy in that bullpen. I've never seen anything like it, to be honest with you. I've never seen anything like how bad the Phillies bullpen was last year. Never. It was so embarrassingly bad for that level of play. Now, the other comment that Bill brought to the table on the text board, 609-403-0973, is that when you have a team that believes in themselves, and I think this is a good example of a team that legitimately likes playing with each other and believes in themselves. And I think the guy who is setting the tone for this, right? The guy who is setting the tone for this team liking each other and believing in themselves, that guy is Archie Bradley. And you might think that is the most random comment, period. But if you follow Archie Bradley on Twitter, you will see a guy who legitimately loves pitching for the Philadelphia Phillies. Now, he could have been on any team, and he might like that team too. But he's the kind of guy you want on your team. He tweets 21 hours ago, "Happy Sweepster, Phillies family." Instead of Easter, obviously. By the way, happy Easter to everybody out there. Hopefully you enjoyed time with your families. Says, what a way to start the season for the city and, of course, the boys. Nola, Wheeler, and Eflin set the tone. Hashtag 159 to go. Hashtag ring the bell. Bradley is active on social media, it seems like, after every game, but it's in a positive way. Positive towards his teammates, positive towards the city, positive towards the team. And you need that kind of guy who loves being a part of something. And Bradley feels like the guy. He tweets out the video of Connor Brogdon getting the last out, or Brogdon yes, getting the last out of the 10th inning in opening day. Bradley tweets, fires me up. Hashtag ring the bell. That is the kind of guy that I feel like gets it. And I tweeted, Phillies fans are going to love Archie Bradley. But yesterday, when you watched that team play and they went to the bullpen, you felt so much different. I know I did anyway. You know, they go to the bullpen yesterday, and you get a great game out of Zach Eflin. He gives you 7 strong innings yesterday. Zach Eflin does. Gives up the 1 homer. Jose Alvarado comes in, and he throws 1 inning and strikes out 2. 8 pitches, 10 strikes, boom. 10 pitches, 8 strikes, boom. Alvarado with the hold. Neris comes in, gets the save, had to wiggle out of the jam a little bit, but just the way you wrote it up. Give me 7 strong from my starters. Give me my setup man. Give me my closer, and let's get out of here. Archie Bradley, the kind of guy that even if he doesn't pitch, Archie Bradley has thrown 7 pitches, I think, all season long so far. And yet he is the guy. He has a picture, he tweets out April 1st, I love this game. And it's a picture of him jumping over the dugout. And it's him like just, woo! I know it sounds really ridiculous, but Archie Bradley feels like the kind of guy that is what a team that wins need. Now, you might say, well, what about Archie Bradley's other teams? Like, what has happened with him and his other stops? Doesn't necessarily mean those teams were talented enough. I think this Phillies team is talented enough. That's the difference. They have the talent. They just need that. It's like Carson Wentz has more talent than Jalen Hurts, but he's missing that it factor that maybe Hurts brings to the table. Archie Bradley has that, I don't want to say 6th sense, but he has that something that good teams need on their team. And when they have that guy on a team that does have the talent, that's when it works. The 93 Phillies, they had that situation where you had a bunch of cast-offs, a bunch of guys that people were like, Archie Bradley's been a guy. He was in Arizona for a bunch of years. I think last year he got traded to Cincinnati. And look, Archie Bradley is not some ace pitcher, by the way. I mean, he's been decent. He's, he was a starter early in his career with Arizona. He got moved to the bullpen. I think last year he kind of turned into a closer. But, I mean, he's been to the playoffs a couple of times. Last year in Cincinnati. And in 2017, he made it with the Arizona Diamondbacks. So he's been to the playoffs a couple of times. But I just feel like those are the teams that have that extra something. The 93 Phillies, nobody picked them to do anything, and they had that guy. They had a bunch of guys they just brought in here. Pete Incaviglia, Jim Eisenreich, a bunch of guys that nobody was like clamoring for, but they fit in, and everybody on the team got along, and it propelled that team to something. I don't know that that's going to happen with this Phillies team, but I feel if it does, we're all going to come back to this conversation that we're having today. That this guy, Bradley, really likes playing here, and maybe they had the talent, and it was a guy like that that's having so much fun playing here that he pulled the talent out of here, out of this bullpen, out of this starting rotation. 609-403-0973. Couple other messages coming in. Eddie S. Murphy. I feel like I have to put the S in there, Eddie S. Murphy the second. Sorry. I can't just call you Eddie Murphy. That's not fair. Facebook is where Eddie's watching the show today. How do you think our 4 and 5 will be? I think Matt Moore could surprise, to be honest with you. Of the 2 guys, I think Moore has the higher upside. I think Anderson's the steadier guy. I think Moore can be the guy who surprised. How many times have we seen the guy? Matt Moore was like a highly touted guy. He was, I believe, a first-round pick, if memory serves me. And Matt Moore, one of those guys that, he was, I think he started in Tampa, I want to say. He was in Tampa. He's bounced around a little bit. So he's been, I don't want to say a disappointment. I mean, and I guess you could say he's been a little bit of a disappointment. If you're a first-round pick, and look, baseball, there is no surefire first-round picks. But I think Moore was one of those guys that was supposed to be a big strikeout pitcher, and the injuries have kind of beat him up a little bit. He pitched in Tampa back in 2012, was 11-11. The next year, he had a big season with the Rays. In 2013, he was 17-4. But he's really been inconsistent, to be honest with you. He has not been a very reliable guy. I think the injuries have been a big problem for him. And then last year, he went over to Japan. So of the two, I find Moore to be the guy who that maybe a year away from it here in the Major League Baseball scene, just kind of go over there, get a lot of success, come back. He's a lefty. Now he's a little older. Maybe he kind of, gives one of those surprise seasons. Kind of like, remember Rich Hill? I think Rich Hill might even still be pitching. But Rich Hill had to go to like the independent leagues to kind of get back on track. And he's turned into a really good pitcher since coming out of the independent leagues. Chase Anderson, by the way, he's no stiff either. I mean, but Chase Anderson, to answer your question, he really struggled last year in Toronto. Last year was a tough year. But he's a guy who, he's the kind of guy that I'm looking for. 9-8 with Milwaukee. 12-4 he was with Milwaukee. 9-11 with Milwaukee. You need like 9-7 he was in Arizona. He's a guy who's, a little over 500, maybe a little under 500, something like that. Just a guy that eats up the innings. So to answer your question, yeah, Baseball America had Matt Moore as the number 2 prospect in baseball back in 2011. He wasn't a first-round pick, but he was the number 2 prospect in baseball. So maybe that's where I confused them. I think those two guys, yeah, so it doesn't confuse you with the comedian. Yes, you caught on to that one, Eddie. I think those two guys, to answer your question, the 4 and the 5, I think they can be solid, both of them. Like earlier, somebody brought up the comment that we're in desperate need of starting pitching. I don't think this team is in desperate need of starting pitching. I think that these two guys could be about 500 pitchers, and that's what the back end of the rotation needs. Back end of the rotation needs a couple of guys who can be about 500. Sports Bash today is brought to you by John Deere. Nothing runs like a deer online at deere.com. Man, I think we're flying today. I feel like this hour's almost over. 2:40 on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. Watch the show live at 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, Will Ham is watching. He says Archie Bradley is awesome on Twitter. He just makes you feel like this guy wants to connect with the fans. Although I was hoping he would have retweeted me when I said Philly fans are going to love this guy. Felt like he should have given me a retweet, right? I mean, that's a positive interaction it would have been. All right, so we got a lot more to do. Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget, download the free mobile app. I have the Sports Bash cash code word coming up for you at 2:55. Your chance to win up to $10,000. More Sports Bash on the way. All right, 245 Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Download the free mobile app in 10 minutes. I have a Sports Bash cash code word for you. It's worth up to $10,000. Thanks to Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union for all your lending needs. I'll give you the Sports Bash cash code word. You enter it on our website or use the free mobile app on your phone. It's pretty easy to do. I'll give you the word. You enter the word on the website or the mobile app. If we select your name, you win $1,000. Everybody who wins $1,000, you're then entered for the grand prize of up to $10,000. The more words you enter, the more money you can win. It's pretty easy. So just keep entering the words, even if you don't win the money. If you are selected at the end of this, the more words you would have entered, they would say, hey, you entered every word. You win $10,000. Hey, you entered 9 out of 10 words. You're going to win $9,000. I think there's more than 10 words, so it's 10 a day. So you got a lot of chances to win this money. And it's all brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union. I'm also giving away 4-packs of Flyers tickets today on the show for tomorrow night's game. So if you want to go to the Flyers game tomorrow night, we're going to be giving those away starting in the next hour right here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, I got the Phillies lineup for tonight here in front of me. And there's not a lot of changes in it, if any at all, I don't think, actually. You got McCutchen, Hoskins, Harper, Real Muto, Bohm, Didi, Segura, Hastley, and Matt Moore. So there's your 9. By the way, how many times do we talk about on this show about I hate the DH, and the DH is for baseball, for people who don't like baseball? And I stand by that. If you're not a baseball fan, that's fine. You like the American League game, that's not really a baseball game. People who like the American League, you don't really like baseball. I get it. The baseball you saw this weekend, that was real baseball. You saw Zach Wheeler not only dealing, but you saw Zach Wheeler helping out with the stick. 2 for 3, 2 RBI, a run scored. I think he doubled twice in the game. Was it 2 doubles for Wheeler? Yeah, 2 doubles in the game. That was baseball. Oh, I hate the when the pitcher goes up there and gives 3 weak swings. No. The pitcher went up there and ripped 2 doubles. No weak swings. I didn't watch some DH that comes up and hits 230, weakly grounding out the shortstop. I saw the pitcher come up there with maybe the best swing of the afternoon. Zach Wheeler had one of the nicest swings on the team. So save the DH for the people who don't really like baseball. You guys can keep the DH. I'll stick without him. Saw a bunt laid down in the game the other day. Didn't actually work out. Somebody sacrificed. Zach Eflin laid down a bunt, sacrificed the runner to second. You had a runner on second with less than 2 outs and the top of the order up. I'll take that all the time over the guy on first base with some meekly 220 hitter hitting in the 9-hole. Oh, the DH adds more offense. No, it doesn't. Runs per game in the National League and the American League are about the same. I think it's 4.9 runs per game in the American League, and it's about 4.5 runs per game in the National League. The DH doesn't. It's a placebo. They make you think that the DH generates more offense. It's not really accurate. It's, again, American League baseball is baseball for people who don't really like baseball, who don't really understand baseball. Here's a DH. We'll put that there so that you can cheer on this game that doesn't really have anything going on. There's no strategy involved. You ever try to talk strategy with an American League baseball fan? It's very frustrating. They kind of look at you like, wait a second. There's actually stuff that the manager has to do that affects the outcome of a game? Yeah. Go watch a National League game. There's a lot of decisions that came up this weekend. And the Phillies-Braves series was a really good example of it, especially for the Phillies, because of how good their pitchers were pitching. Because you have a situation now, the Phillies bullpen is better, but Zach Wheeler, who, by the way, had 7 innings, 10 strikeouts, and he had 2 hits. So his spot in the order would come up, say, like in the 8th inning. Do I want to have him pitch again, or do I want to hit for him? He's cruising. Do I really want to take him out of the game? The manager now has to make that decision. Now, I thought Wheeler, now somebody said he had a single and a double. I thought Wheeler had 2 doubles. Here it's, he had 2 ribbies. Sorry, you're right. He had a single and a double. Yeah, it says Wheeler, 2 ribbies, not 2 doubles. He doubled and singled and had 2 ribbies. He had 2 RBI, 2 hits, a run scored. I mean, he was the best player on the field that day. He was better than Ohtani was. I mean, Ohtani, everybody's making this huge deal about what he did. He had a 450-foot homer, big whip. He was fun to watch last night. I think he got hurt in the 5th or something like that. I feel like it's the weirdest thing when you really think about it, that the pitcher is typically thought of to be the worst hitter. When growing up, essentially, the pitcher is the premier player most of the time. The guy who pitches, he's also, your best hitter. He does everything when he's at 12, 13, 14, 15, high school. These guys are typically, your pitchers are typically your guys who are your best players. The fact that they just lose it is like one of the more odd phenomenons. (609-403-0973). Joe Madden of the Angels had to use some strategy last night because he had Ohtani. That's why. That's the one reason why. And by the way, I don't think Joe Madden did a very good job last night. I literally, there's an American League game on. I love baseball. And last night, I had to switch off the Sixers game. It was just so bad. And we'll get into that coming up in about 25 minutes with Hudrick. It was just so lifeless last night. The Sixers game was terrible. So I switched over to the Angels and the White Sox. It was the Sunday night baseball game last night. Mike Trout. I turn it on. Trout rips one, and I'm like, man, this guy just keeps cranking them out. But as I'm watching that game, it was driving me nuts because there were so many times when you're like, there's nothing going, there's no foresight. When I'm watching an American League game, I can't get into the game because there's nothing to see down the road. Is it just me, or does anybody else watch the game with the same? I don't know. The American League people like the game with the DH, and there's a lot of people out there that like the DH. And I can't watch a game unless I'm into the game 2 and 3 innings down the road. There was a guy tweeting at me the other day. I hate watching the pitcher hit. I love when the pitcher spot comes up because the first thing I think of in my head is, are they going to let this guy hit? Are they going to get him out? Is he going to bunt? Is he going to swing? When the pitcher spot comes up is when your brain starts working. How many more innings can I get back through the order with him not hitting so that I can keep him out there? Am I going to take him out? Then the double switch comes into play. I mean, I'm literally watching that game 2 and 3 innings down the road. I'm watching that American League game last night, and I'm bored out of my mind. I think the American League game with the DH is the boring part. Now, here's the problem. You'd say, well, and you would be right. You're not putting that game on for a 12-year-old, and he's going to start thinking the way that I am 2 and 3 innings down the road. So the happy medium there is tough. I mean, he's not going to sit there and say, oh, they're going to pull the pitcher here. Oh, they're going to sacrifice here. They're going to double switch here. No, he's just looking for another guy in the lineup. But now you're essentially saying you want to watch the game like a 12-year-old kid. And that's what they created the American League for. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app. I got a Sports Bash Cash code word coming up for you in just about 50 seconds, so stick around and I'll get it to you. But coming up on the other side, the Eagles over-under for wins. Is it cause for optimism or pessimism? You might be surprised at this over-under win total. Yeah, I think you might be. I was. And I know what I'm betting. And I'm going to tell you coming up next here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. And don't forget, next hour, I got a 4-pack of tickets to go see the Flyers play tomorrow night, so stick around. We'll give those away in the 3 o'clock hour. Here comes the Sports Bash Cash code word coming up. NECK, N-E-C-K, NECK. Enter it now on our website, 973ESPN.com, or use the free mobile app, Sports Bash Cash, brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union for all your lending needs. Get the next Sports Bash Cash code word at 355. All right, coming up in 20 minutes from now, it is a Inside the Sixers. Paul Hudrick will join us to talk a little bit about the Sixers weekend. They split this weekend. They beat Minnesota on Saturday and lost yesterday to a decent Memphis team. They're not great by any stretch of the imagination. But a couple things on that game we'll get into with Hudrick in 20 minutes. I want to get into this Eagles stuff, the over-under for wins. I was surprised when I read it. All right, see what you guys think. Don't forget, download the free mobile app. I got another Sports Bash Cash code word coming up at 3:55 today. You can win up to $10,000, $1,000 a word. So don't miss the word. That's what I would say about that. All right. Here's what I'll ask. If I was to say, what is the over-under for wins, what would you set it at? 609-403-0973. And I want you to text in what you would set the over-under for wins. And the person who comes the closest, because I don't know where you would find this, to be honest with you. And if there's multiple people, the first person that gets it in, we will hook up with a 4-pack of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow night. We have 3 4-packs of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow night. So what do you think the over-under for wins for the 2021 Philadelphia Eagles is? 609-403-0973. What is the over-under, okay, over-under for Eagles wins in 2021? Text in, and the person who gets it in the fastest, we will hook up with a 4-pack of tickets to tomorrow night. Now, this is what I will say. I was surprised by the number. And I don't know if it's because I thought it was too high or too low, but I was a little surprised by the number. And here's the thing. The over-under for win totals for this team, does it make you optimistic or pessimistic? So think about that. What is the over-under for Eagles wins in 2021? 609-403-0973. Tell me what you think it is. The person who is the closest or gets it right the fastest, we will hook you up. We will call you and let you know what it is, and we will hook you up with a 4-pack of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow. We have 3 4-packs, so we can hook you up with a 4-pack of tickets. All right. I see a bunch of people texting in right now. So I'll give you a couple more minutes to text in your guess. And man, there's a lot of people guessing. Holy moly. This guy's way off the mark, by the way. And if you're watching on the stream and you want to get involved, let me know. What do you think the over-under for wins is for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2021? Okay, so I see a lot of people guessing, so I'm going to let you keep guessing before I give it away, because we're going to give away a pair of tickets, 4-pack of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow night. So here's the thing. Does it make you optimistic or pessimistic? I would say the number to me makes me optimistic. This is a team that won 4 games last year. So you would anticipate that you're going to be in that range, right? In terms of the over-under for the wins. So I will give you another minute or two to guess, because we got a bunch of people who got who have nailed this thing. And there's a lot of people who are off and kind of around it. So we will get it to the person who got it in first, which that would be this guy right here. All right. So, man, couple things on this. The Flyers, by the way, play Boston tomorrow night. They play tonight and tomorrow. Sixers play Boston tomorrow. Flyers play Boston tomorrow. By the way, speaking of the Flyers tonight and tomorrow, the trade deadline's a week from today. They need these games tonight and tomorrow. They're playing Boston tonight and tomorrow. And let's see the standings really fast just to kind of see where they are. All right. So they are 4 points behind Boston. So if they win tonight and tomorrow, they'd be deadlocked. And then they play the Islanders. And then they play Boston again on Saturday. And then they play Buffalo. So they essentially have to beat Boston twice, and then either the Islanders on Thursday or Boston on Saturday, and then have the Buffalo game. If that happens, then you're a buyer. Anything other than that happens, I think you're a seller. Because if you lose tonight, you're now 5 back. You're 6 back. If you lose tomorrow, you're now 8 back, depending on if you lose in overtime or not. But if you're 8 back, and let's say you lose the game against the Islanders on Thursday, you could potentially be 10 back. And then it doesn't even matter what you do over the weekend. You're 6 out, even if you win both those games. You've got to basically sweep these 2 games. I mean, these 2 games, tonight and tomorrow, that's essentially the season. All right, so let me read off some of the guesses here. I want to tell you that we got a lot of guesses. So thanks to everybody who was playing along. This guy got it first. So there's your winner. Matt and Cape May Courthouse. He says, based on your tone, I'd assume it is 6.5. I would set it at 5.5 myself. Matt and Cape May Courthouse. You are correct. It is 6.5. He was the person who got it in the fastest. We had Pat in Summers Point. He guessed 7. 7.5. 9 was the one that I saw and was like, 9 wins? Are you kidding me? Not that I think you're so off base that can happen. I'm just saying I didn't think Vegas would set it at 9. Don in Atlantic City said 7. Chris G had 6. Over under 8.5. Another one, 8.5, pretty high. Jeff in EHT got it right, but he wasn't the first person to get it in. Another one was 9.5. 9.5. I mean, look, I like your optimism there. Over under 6.5. That one was right, but it wasn't the first one in. Cole and LBI says 5.5 wins. I don't need the tickets. I just like the trivia. All right, Cole. But you were wrong. 5.5 is not the Vegas odds. It is actually over under 6.5 is the number. And a lot of you, actually, not that many people got it. A lot of people were bouncing around it. But, Josh, this is the winner right here. I'll get you his information in just a second. You got it in front of you? Okay, so he's got it over there. So he's the guy who got it first. We'll have another 4-pack to give away either this hour. I have 3 4-packs. We just gave one away to Matt and Cape May Courthouse. So congratulations to Matt. I'll either do another 4-pack by the end of this hour or in the next hour. All right? It'll definitely be by 5 o'clock because I have to get the names to the Flyers by 5. That's why. All right? So they're going to be good seats. The Flyers are hooking us up. They're hooking you up. 17 games and playing the NFC East. 6.5 is an easy over. That's a text message. You know what's funny that you say that? Because I think the 17 games is a big difference. That extra game, 6-10 now is 6-11. So are you 7-10? And is 7-10? Think about this team won 4 games last year. If you won 7 games, would you feel? That's why it's weird. So that's why I was asking, are you optimistic or pessimistic that the number is 6.5? If it was a 16-game season and I told you 6.5, theoretically that's saying you could get to 7. And if you were 7-9, would you feel that the team made progress? But the guy's point about the NFC East, this is where I disagree. See, I think the NFC East is going to be, I don't want to use the word significantly better, but here's where I think the NFC East teams, I think the NFC East teams are all better. I think Dallas is significantly better just by getting Prescott back. Not to mention they have the 10th pick in the draft, and if they can hit on that, that Dallas team should be pretty strong for the first time in 30 years. New York should be better. They've won out. They've done some good work. I think New York should be better. They need some offensive line help, but I think New York should be, I don't want to say significantly better, but they should be better. And I think Washington should be almost significantly better. They won the division last year. Can the NFC East be any worse? No, it can't be. It was so bad last year, Will. But I think Washington with Ryan Fitzpatrick at least has a real quarterback, something they haven't had forever. I mean, it's not like Fitzpatrick's winning the MVP of the league, but at least he's like real. He's like a legitimate guy. And their defense is real. So in most years when you enter the season, Philadelphia and Dallas are the two teams that you're kind of talking about for the last couple of years anyway. Washington and New York have been dumpster fires. I think New York is turning the corner, and Washington won the division last year. And now they've upgraded at quarterback. Their defense is for reals. So I disagree with what that guy's saying. Here's where I would say the 6.5 is the easy number. The 6.5 being the easy number is the fact that you play, I think I've counted this up before, I think it's 11 teams that the Eagles play next year that didn't make the playoffs last year. So your opponents, now the schedule, of course, hasn't come out, but the opponents that the Eagles play, let me pull this up real fast. Here we go. They play on the road, at the Giants, at the football team, at the Cowboys. Two of those teams did not make the playoffs last year. The Vegas Raiders did not make the playoffs last year. The Denver Broncos did not make the playoffs last year. The Atlanta Falcons did not make the playoffs last year. The Carolina Panthers did not make the playoffs last year. The Detroit Lions did not make the playoffs last year. The New York Jets did not make the playoffs last year. Their 8 road games, actually, they're 9 road games because they play a 9th road game. Of the 9 games they play on the road, only one of those teams made the playoffs last year. That's the Washington football team. That's it. So 8 of their 9 road games are against teams that did not make the playoffs. Think about that. You playing on the road, it's tough. But 8 of 9 of those games versus non-playoff teams. Now, on the home side of things, obviously the 3 teams in the NFC East. They host Kansas City, New Orleans, Tampa Bay. Those 3 games are going to be tough days at the office. I mean, New Orleans is going to be different now without Breeze, though. But still, I would think that you will be a home underdog against those 3 teams. San Francisco did not make the playoffs last year. And the Chargers did not make the playoffs last year. So that's 9 of your opponents. And 11 of your games are against teams, because the Giants and the Cowboys you play twice, are against teams that did not make the playoffs a year ago. So that's why the 6.5 number to me is pretty interesting. So the 17-game schedule kind of puts that 6.5 number and makes you think a lot about it. Because I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to see 6.5 and think 6 and 10. Got to bet the under. That extra game is going to have Vegas piling on a couple extra bucks possibly. All right, Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We'll talk more about that coming up. Football at 4 today. Adam Kaplan is back. And if you don't know about Prop Swap by now, you better find out about it. There's some great tickets for tonight's national championships games. You could go get a Gonzaga ticket for the best odds in the country. Or if you think there'll be an upset with Baylor, they have a Baylor ticket right now. It's by far the best odds in the country. Go make a bid on those tickets. If you have a Gonzaga ticket, if you have a Baylor ticket, you could sell those before the game starts. Make your money before tip-off with PropSwap.com. Go to PropSwap.com or download the PropSwap app today. National championship game tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget, coming up tomorrow, it's Sixers-Boston. We're going to talk Sixers on the other side. The Sixers split this weekend. Ben Simmons has a couple numbers this month that are pretty interesting. We'll get into that. We'll get into Joel Embiid's return and so much more. The Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle, and watch the show live at 97.3ESPN.com. right, Sixers weekend. It was a split, kind of split reviews, if you will. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Paul Hudrick, our Sixers insider, going to join us here in just a sec as we take a look back at the game. Joel Embiid returned. That was really the story of the weekend, if you will. The fact that we saw the return of Joel Embiid. How did he look? A little rusty, if you ask me, but it was nice to see him back out there. Thought he took a couple falls that were a little concerning, but in Joel Embiid fashion, he's always flip-flopping, falling all over the court. Also, Ben Simmons, I thought he got off to an aggressive start last night and just kind of faded away after that. But the team last night just did not have it. I'm wondering, you have Embiid the one night and then you're playing without him again the very next night. You're trying to reincorporate him back into the mix. And then but I thought the one takeaway from last night is when you look at what Doc Rivers said, which was, he really talked about the grueling schedule that this team has kind of been dealing with over the last, really since the All-Star break. We talked about it when they came out of that All-Star break, when the second half of the season, when they put that schedule out there. Remember talking to Paul about how this season, the second half of the season schedule was really a daunting task. I mean, if you remember, they came out of the gates, they had to play that road trip. You got a 6-gamer on the road. With the Kings, the game they played the Kings, then they had the Knicks, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Cavs, all on the road. The Kings game was here. And I think you're seeing that kind of schedule kind of catch up to them a little bit. And Doc Rivers mentioned it last night that this schedule has kind of been a grueling schedule for them. So I was a little surprised that he actually brought it up, but it's something that we had discussed was the second half schedule was a very daunting schedule for this team. It doesn't get much easier, by the way. They play Boston tonight. Then they've got New Orleans on Friday night. And then you've got a back-to-back Friday, Saturday. So I would imagine you don't see Joel Embiid on one of those two games, either Friday night or Saturday against Oklahoma City. They've got Boston tomorrow, New Orleans Friday, Oklahoma, and they're back on the road, by the way, for 4 straight here. Boston, New Orleans, Oklahoma City, Dallas. Those games are all on the road. So they had that 6-game road trip out west, and then we said at the end of that road trip they were kind of putting along. They came home to play a pair of games, and now they're going back on the road for 4 straight. And I'm not going to say it's fair, but whoever made the schedule was not very kind to the Philadelphia 76ers coming out of that break. But that it is what it is. By the way, national championship game tonight, 8 o'clock right here on 97.3 ESPN, Baylor, Gonzaga. What a finish to that game, the Gonzaga game. Everyone's still talking about it. It was a wild end to the overtime. Suggs hits basically a half-court 3 to win that game after UCLA ties the game up with 3 seconds to go. It was a wild game. I thought, for the most part, that I was flipping back and forth. I went over to the college game. I went off the Sixers game because the Sixers game on Saturday night, it kind of got, they're playing Minnesota. So it was tough. So I went over to the college game and then went back to the Sixers. Last night, Sixers was tough to watch. They looked like a game. Paul Hudrick joins me now to kind of bring it on down. And it looked like a game, and I was a little surprised that Doc brought up the gruelingness of this schedule. But you and I brought it up when that second half schedule was put out. They had that 6-game road trip. They came home. They got 4 games on the road coming up here, too. So they're going right back on the road. And it seemed like Doc kind of felt that his team hit that wall a little bit last night, and it looked like it.
Right. I mean, he even said, at shoot-around, it didn't feel right. He said that it just didn't have the look, that they just didn't have it. And he said he went to Dave Yeager and even told him that. And it's tough, Mike, when you look at the road trip they just had, that the 6 games, that takes a toll on you. And then you come home, you get Joel Embiid back for a night, and then you don't have him the next night, and it's a back-to-back. Like, if I'm being honest, Mike, when we first saw this second half schedule come out and you and I looked over it, I saw these back-to-backs and I was like, that's not easy. Even with Joel Embiid, if he was playing, that's not easy to go 6 games, then come home and play a back-to-back against anybody, regardless of opponent. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it was a little bit, perhaps a little refreshing almost for Doc Rivers to kind of come out and say, yeah, like we didn't have it. We were tired. The schedule kind of killed us. He joked that they said, they complained to the league that they shouldn't have to play this, but it's the reality of what every other team's going to have to face. It's a weird year. The schedule is truncated. We all know what they're up against, and then they have to play a postponed game against OKC coming up. So I mean, it's a difficult season, more so than any in the past. So I don't, you don't want to use it as an excuse, but I think it's the reality of the situation, and it's something that has to be accounted for.
Yeah, the 2 games at home, they play back-to-back, so thanks a lot. You get a 6-game road trip, then a back-to-back at home, and then you send us right back on the road. And it's not like this is an easy Mid-Atlantic, Northeast trip. Boston to New Orleans to Oklahoma City, back out to Dallas. So this 4-gamer, this is not going to be an easy one. This could be an interesting stretch to see what those standings look like and coming out of it. We would anticipate, too, and Paul, he kind of hinted at that Joel would not play in the back-to-back coming up on Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of said they're going to take it game by game, which I think is what they've done to start the season up until now. Like this one, I think if you might have been kidding yourself if you thought he was going to play in both. I didn't want to rule it out because it wasn't impossible, but I certainly didn't see it happening after missing 3 weeks. It didn't make sense to then play him in a back-to-back. So yeah, I mean, they're going to be careful, and as they should be at this point. It's going to be hard enough for the guys who are perfectly healthy and who don't have injury histories to play these games. So to ask Joel Embiid to do it, yeah, it might be a lot. And then again, given the fact of, how funky the season is with the health and safety protocols and everything going on, you're going to be even more careful. And as you already said, Mike, it's going to be tough. They have a Boston team who's probably itching to play them after they beat them twice in Philly. New Orleans is not going to be, they're not great this year. They're having a tough year. They don't defend well. But when you have Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram on the other side that can get hot on any given night, that's not going to be a fun game to play. OKC is what they are. But again, they have guys that can beat you. They're a hungry young team. And in Dallas, another team that probably feels like they owe you one after the Sixers beat up on them in Philly and Luka had a rough night. So you have some teams that are probably itching to get back at you. And you have, 4 games in a very small space of time. So it's going to be a challenge, and you're going to have to navigate, Joel Embiid occasionally missing the occasional back-to-back, and other guys too. I mean, not everybody is 100% healthy on this team, and it's going to be tough to find spots to get other guys rest as well.
Yeah, and Paul, looming after a 4-game road trip is Brooklyn and the Clippers at home. I mean, that Brooklyn showdown, everybody's going to be looking forward to. The thing will be, people don't want to see you kind of stub your toe en route to getting to that, situation with Brooklyn. So you got Brooklyn on that Wednesday next week coming up on the 14th. So this is an interesting stretch. We talked about Ben Simmons on Friday. Last night, Doc Rivers said something that we kind of hinted at, that like he doesn't care if he shoots, but he also said, I don't really care if he scores all that much. And I kind of said, I'm surprised that Sixer fans haven't got on Doc more. But how about the fact that he says, we don't care if he really scores all that much? Is that him kind of trying to downplay that he hasn't been playing very well offensively?
I think the one thing we've noticed with Doc and Ben is that Doc he's going to defend Ben in public. I think that's just going to be the way he is. He's going to defend him in public and criticize him in private. I think that's kind of the way he operates. I think that's the way Ben Simmons kind of likes it to operate. And I think that's the way Doc Rivers likes it. So I think that's a good relationship there. I think that's what they kind of do. I don't quote me on this, but I feel like there's almost a little bit of a good cop, bad cop thing with Doc and Sam Cassell with Ben Simmons, where Sam Cassell will kind of get into Ben for certain things. So I think that's a part of it too. I think, Mike, you've kind of been on it. You've talked about it a lot, where at least for this season, I think you have to just accept that Ben Simmons is going to be what he is from a scoring standpoint and what he provides. And I think they have a formula that they like that makes sense. Look, Joel Embiid is averaging 30 points a game. Tobias Harris is playing very efficient and averaging over 20 points a game. And then you have Ben Simmons flanked by 2 guys that are shooting over 40% on high volume from threes. That's kind of an ideal scenario for Ben Simmons when you look at that, because then all he has to do is, and you saw it in the Minnesota game. At that point, he needs to find the gaps where the defense is going to lay off him, and he needs to find guys that are open and get it to them in the right spots. And then, of course, play elite defense on the other end of the floor. So I think for at least this season, as a 24-year-old, for them to try to win a championship, this is the role he needs to play. It's kind of an elevated Draymond Green role, and it can work. They have a formula that can work if Joel Embiid keeps playing at this level, if Tobias Harris keeps playing at this level, especially late in games in the fourth quarter, what we've seen him, what he's been able to do. I think there is a formula that can work. And, maybe some Sixers fans don't like it because he's a number 1 overall pick. He needs to do this. He needs to do that. If he can just be elite in that role, in that kind of Draymond Green type role, I think there is something here. There's a recipe that I think can work.
Yeah, you make a good point. The roster configuration that the Sixers put out there, essentially their message is we built this roster so that we didn't have to rely on Ben to score, because we finally have come to terms with he's not a scorer. He can score, but we've come to terms as an organization that he's not going to score 20 or 25 points a night. So instead of fighting that, we put a roster around him that he doesn't need to be that guy.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's
and it's of Iverson. Iverson can score 35, so we'll put a bunch of guys around you that don't score a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like the polar opposite of Iverson, right? And that Ben Simmons can pretty much do everything else except kind of score at a high elite rate. And yeah, I think that was Daryl Morey's mission immediately was, what do I do to build this team best around Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons? And I think to an extent he has done that. Now, if we're looking ahead and looking at the postseason and looking where we might be concerned, my biggest concern is going to be that Ben Simmons, Dwight Howard lineup. I don't think you can play them together in the postseason, flat out. I think you have to have Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons play together, and then I think George Hill has to play the whatever 10 to 12 minutes Dwight Howard's going to play if he's going to be your backup center. That's got to be with George Hill, because I don't think you can pair them together, and the numbers bear it out. Raw numbers, analytical, advanced numbers, whatever you want to look at. Ben Simmons, Dwight Howard, it's just not a good combination really on either end either. So that's the one thing I am probably the most concerned about. I think there are ways to stagger them to make sure that doesn't happen. I'm a little concerned that Doc might be stubborn and really try to force it and make it work, where I don't think it will. So I think that as long as Ben Simmons is playing with the right mix of players, which is basically surround him with shooters, then I think he can play at a high level. So that's what I'm looking at. And I think for sure, Mike, I think that's when Daryl Morey was building this roster, when he was looking at this team, he identified players, and George Hill is one of them as well, that really can fit in very well with Ben Simmons.
Yeah, real quick on George Hill. What did Doc have to say about anything updating his return?
Not much, very vague. He hasn't done anything with contact yet. He's been shooting the basketball, which is certainly a plus. And Doc said he looks good shooting the basketball, so that's a plus. But yeah, I don't think they're going to get a good idea of where he is until he can play kind of, whatever, one-on-one and play with some contact, because we're not even there yet, Mike. So I think that tells you that we're not that close to him coming back. Doc said he wants him to get him for at least 10 games. There's still 20 plus in the season. So to kind of give you an idea of where they're thinking now, I think Doc, when he says at least 10 games, I think he's looking at it kind of pessimistically, if that makes sense. Like he wants to bank on that, but hope that there's more. So I think it's going to be some time. I wouldn't expect George Hill to come into the lineup anytime in the very near future, but I also would say it's not something where he's not going to not play at all. I think he's going to get enough games.
That would be monumentally awful.
Sure. And I don't think we're there. I don't think we're anywhere close to that. I think
a notch below Andrew Bynum.
Right. No, I don't think it's like anything like that. I think he does play a good amount of games. When Doc says 10 games, I think he's going more on the pessimistic side, just to kind of give himself that cushion. So yeah. I would think it's going to be 10 or more games, which for a guy like George Hill, the veteran he is, I think he'll be fine.
How did Embiid kind of feel and respond to playing Saturday night? Were you there Saturday? Who was there Saturday?
I was not. So I had Kevin McCormick was kind enough. I have to thank him because I had some COVID situations I had to take care of. Luckily, negative for me. So yay. But so I stayed away from the arena as a good person. Decided to better to stay away from the arena. So anyway, but talking to Doc Rivers and talking to Joel after Saturday's game, it seems like Joel Embiid feels good. The knee feels pretty good, which is great.
He said he was concerned he was going to miss the rest of the season. Didn't he say that?
100%. He said that when the injury occurred, he was on the ground crying, saying, "Why me?" Because he thought he was done. And because everything was, and like when we first talked, Mike, initially when it happened, it was this feeling of, man, everything is, all the things that this guy has done and all the things that he's done right this year, all the improvements he's made to take, and taking care of himself, taking care of his body. And for this to happen, it just, it did. It felt awful. I felt bad for the guy. So I think he's relieved in that regard. He complained about the brace, said it was a little itchy and kind of bothered him. He's got to get used to it. But hey, if that's all we got to worry about, that's pretty darn good. And, obviously conditioning. I mean, the guy hasn't played in 3 weeks. Of course, game shape is different from being in cardiovascular shape. It's a different animal entirely. So he's going to have to work himself up. I would expect that's going to be a thing that, not like it has been in the past, because I already thought he looked better in Saturday's game than other instances in years past where he's been out of the lineup for a while and then had to come back. I thought he looked pretty good, all things considered. So that's going to take a little bit of time for him to get ramped up to where he can play 30 plus minutes. But overall, Mike, I am very encouraged by what I saw and the way he talked after the game. I think he's in a good place as well.
Yeah, last guy I want to touch on is Paul Reed, because Doc insinuated that he's not ready. What I saw, though, was a guy who has great basketball sense. There was the play where he came from the three-point line, cut down the middle, Furkan with a nice bounce pass to him. But that tells me movement without the ball, he's got good basketball intuition. Moving without the ball is not a trait that everybody comes right into the league and excels at. Not that he's excelling, but it felt like he's got good basketball sense. And not that he could help out this particular year, but I was a little surprised that Doc just came right out and said, he's not ready. He's not even under consideration.
Right. I mean, it was point blank. Doc said he doesn't think he's ready. He likes Paul, said he's not ready. And I get it. I think the bigger concern, Mike, is on the defensive end when you talk about the way that, because you see how they've improved defensively in their rotations and their help defense. And I think that's the bigger concern, is to rely on a 21-year-old rookie to play such an important role like that, especially at the center position. It's asking a lot. Not to say to me like that it's impossible that he can't do it, but I get where Doc is coming from. For me, at the same time, I would say, listen, if Joel Embiid isn't in the lineup, what does it hurt to kind of give him a look? Like, that's the time. Like, I get it if everybody's healthy. If Joel Embiid is healthy, if Dwight Howard's healthy, I don't think there's a reason to go to Paul Reed in that condition. But with Joel Embiid down, I don't see the harm, especially with, quite frankly, Mike Scott not playing well. I don't see the harm in doing that. But I think for the future, Mike, his long-term prospects, I think, are tremendous. Going into next year, him being on such a cheap contract for multiple years is going to be so huge for them. He's going to battle. I mean, he's going to be, I would think, he's going to have a really good shot of earning that backup 5 role next season behind Joel Embiid. Dwight Howard is a free agent. Do they bring him back? I don't know. But I think going forward, to have a guy like that who can play the small ball 5, can play a little bit at the 4, and just bring that energy, that athleticism, as you mentioned, the cutting ability. He's just very active. That's the big word, is that he is just a very active body, and he has some skill. So when you combine that, he's a strong prospect, and I think he's going to have a shot to earn a solid role next year as a rotational player.
All right. Don't forget, Paul Hudrick is on Twitter at Paul Hudrick. The Sixers tomorrow night, they take on the Celtics. They'll play Zion, and although Zion's been out the last couple of games, so has Ingram, by the way. Friday night, and that both games right here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget to check out his Coming In for a Landing podcast, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk on the hotline. All right, Paul, good to see you, man.
You too, Mike. Thanks, man.
All right, coming up at 4 o'clock, Adam Kaplan talks a little NFL with us for today's edition of Football at 4. We got a lot to dive into, and don't forget, you can win a 4-pack of tickets to tomorrow night's Flyers game. I'll give you that opportunity coming up in just moments here on the Sports Bash. Plus, Sports Bash Cash. Sports Bash Cash at $3.55. I got another Sports Bash Cash code word of the day. It's worth $1,000 and up to $10,000. Enter the code words on our website, 973ESPN.com, or just simply bang the free mobile app on your phone. Download the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. When we come back, the Sports Bash rolls on. But how about this? Okay? After the break, I want to get into Zach Berman over at The Athletic. Gave 9 quarterback options for the Eagles after the trade. Some of these are kind of interesting. I'll share them with you. Coming up next. All right, 3:46 on a Monday. It's the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN. Sports Bash Cash is coming up at 3:55. Another shot for you to score $1,000 and up to 10 grand. Paul Hudrick, of course. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. Couple comments coming in from our conversation with Paul Hudrick. Ike O is watching on YouTube. It says, funny how everyone has to adjust to Ben Simmons, but Simmons can't and won't adjust to his teammates. I don't know that that's a fair comment. He maybe – I understand what you're saying, but the point of it is that's not the best version of Ben Simmons. You're asking Ben Simmons to be a lesser version of what he is good at. You want him to be a scorer. He's not a scorer. I don't understand why people want to fight this. Not everybody is a 25-point-a-game scorer. Why do we need him to score 25 points if Tobias Harris is having his best year and the other guys are hitting threes? It's like, I get it. It's frustrating. You want the best version of every player, but I don't know that Ben Simmons – look, I've said before, like Ben Simmons could score 25 if he wants to. Not sure he wants to. Not sure he thinks he's that player. So I understand what you're saying, Ike. You're not wrong. But I think Ben sees himself in a different light than you see him in. He is adjusting to the teammates he has. He says, I got you open looks. That's my job. Doc Rivers keeps saying it. He's a facilitator. He is not a scorer. He's a facilitator. We want him to be a scorer. Well, you want him to be a scorer. I've given up on that. I don't care if he's a scorer. I love watching Ben Simmons give guys like Seth Curry, Danny Green. I wouldn't mind another shooter on this team. I love the fact that he gets them wide open looks and that they now have guys that can knock those down. If they don't have guys that can knock them down, Ike, I'm with you. You have guys that can knock down those shots. That's the best version of Ben Simmons. The best version of Ben Simmons is getting deep penetration into the lane, kick out threes, bang, 40% shooters. That's the best version of Ben Simmons. We saw it when he had Marco Bellinelli, Ersan Ilyasova, and that crew. When they had that crew, that was the best version of Ben Simmons. Deep penetration into the lane, kick out three, bang. Guys make open threes. The worst version of Ben Simmons, crowded lane, Josh Richardson, open looks, Al Horford, open look, clank. By the way, North Carolina has hired Hubert Davis to be the next head coach. We talked about that on Friday. I think that was the name that we both brought up. Hubert Davis will be the next head coach at North Carolina, so that didn't take long. I give him credit for just saying, you know what? Let's go with the guy that's on our bench. He's a Carolina guy. Over at YouTube is Maka watching the show live on YouTube. So do you think our pitching is going to be this good and stay healthy all season? Well, that I can't predict. But what I will say is Nola doesn't have an injury history. Wheeler doesn't really have much of an injury history. Eflin has the back issues, so he could be up in the air. Matt Moore, he's 31. He's had injury problems his whole career. So can they stay healthy all season? I mean, it's Major League Baseball pitchers. These guys break down. If they get through all five all season, that would be a shock. Goes on to say, does it guarantee to win the division? Are you sensing a special vibe around this year's team? I kind of am. Does it guarantee they win the division if the pitching stays healthy? It doesn't guarantee anything. No. If their pitching stays healthy, it guarantees me that they'll be in the race. How's that? Is that good enough? I am sensing a cool vibe around this team. I don't know if it's a special vibe. I talked about this in the first hour. A guy like Archie Bradley, I think he's fit in really nice. I think he's kind of pulled out some personality from this team. So, yeah, I'm sensing some stuff there. Ryan Robinson, who's usually a pretty negative guy, just to put that out there. I haven't seen Ryan Robinson be very positive, but that's his. He's entitled to that way of thinking. Ryan, appreciate you watching on Facebook. There's plenty of guys in this league that average 7 assists per game. Most of them also average more than 15 points per game. Sixers won't win anything with Ben not scoring 20. These are good points. I mean, I think Ben Simmons is definitely – I think he has definitely been a disappointment this year if you look at the numbers. If you're just saying numerically he's averaging 7 assists, 15 points, this is not one of his better statistical seasons. But again, I think what we really – you are zoned in, which is fair. Most people do zone in on the points per game and the offensive side of things. The 7 assists per game, by the way, is, I think, a career low for him, for Ben Simmons. I mean, it's a different team, though. This team he's the number one assist man on 3 points. There's a reason for that. Those guys are wide open. They're getting wide open looks. Ben Simmons gives those guys a lot of wide open looks. But what they also do a really good job of, see, the assist goes away when they make that extra pass. And how many times this year have we seen Simmons kick it out to Curry, who then bangs it into the corner for Green? That happens a little bit more than it did in past years. You know why? Because nobody defended the first guy who caught the pass because they didn't think he could make it. So think, context sometimes matters. I know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but when Simmons sets up that first pass now, a lot of times that second pass is going into the corner, and that's becoming a 3. But I agree with you, Ryan, that the numbers that Simmons is putting up right now, if you are grading a guy strictly based on his numbers, not good enough if you're just doing that. I am past that. I'm not sitting here putting a ceiling or floor on Ben Simmons numerically. I don't think Ben has to score 20 points a game. But here's the but. The problem is, for all people, is he needs to rely on those other guys to make shots. He's getting them open looks. They need to nail them. They need to knock them down. He did not have the guys equipped in the past to knock those shots down. If you simply have guys that can knock those shots down at a 38 to 40% clip, you should be pretty good. And if they don't, if those guys come out in the playoffs and are cold and don't shoot well, it's going to go back to Ben Simmons. So, Ryan, you're partially right, and I think you're partially wrong. I don't think Ben has to score 20 if those guys hit shots. He might have to score 20 if they're not hitting shots. The problem will be he's going to set them up to take the shots. So he's not, you know what I'm saying? So you're kind of like, I see your point, but this team was built with the thought that Ben Simmons doesn't need to score 20 points. Good conversation. Good stuff. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Sammy checks in on the Phillies. Wheeler should be 1. That doesn't matter. I like Wheeler too, but they need both those guys. It doesn't matter who's 1 or 2. I need Wheeler and Nola pitching like a 1. That's what it should be. Not one guy should be 1 and the other guy 2, or this guy should. No. Wheeler needs to pitch like he did, and Nola needs to pitch like he did if they want to win this division. They play the Mets tonight. You know who's really good? Jacob deGrom. You know who's pitching tonight? Jacob deGrom. Adam Kaplan, football at 4. Don't go away. Picnic, Picnic, Picnic. Enter it now on our website, 973ESPN.com, or use the free mobile app. Sports Bash Cash is brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union for all your lending needs. Get the next Sports Bash Cash code word at 455. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff Mosher is off today. Adam Kaplan flipping spots. Geoff will be in on Friday. Adam is back today. The Inside the Birds podcast is back today, dropped at 6 a.m. In this hour, the show is brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the Prop Swap app today. Back with us here to take a look at the Eagles at 12 and everything NFL on Football at 4 is Mr. Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Adam, welcome back, man.
How are you, my friend? Yeah, and by the way, ESPN just reported that Sam Darnold is being swapped. Let's see. It's Darnold is going to the Panthers, okay?
Whoa, okay.
For a 6th-round pick, along with 2nd and 4th-round pick in 2022. So yeah. So what we have here, Mike, is a situation where Sam Darnold will compete with Sam Darnold is going to compete with Teddy Bridgewater for the starting quarterback job with the Panthers. So that's where that is, and then the Jets.
That's
good.
Are you surprised that they brought Bridgewater there? I was a little surprised to hear that they wanted to trade up to draft a guy. I thought Bridgewater played pretty well last year, considering they didn't have McCaffrey all season.
Yeah, he actually is very average, and they wanted someone to compete against him, and that's what Sam Darnold's going to do. Now, here's the issue, Mike. He's got a 5th-year option due after the draft, so the Panthers will have to pick that up. And that's valued at $18.8 million. So that's something they're going to have to swallow. But the fact of the matter is, Sam Darnold right now, they really think he could be their future quarterback, and it doesn't preclude them from drafting a quarterback. They're just less likely to do it with a pick, I think, which is number 8.
Yeah, and I guess that kind of affects the Eagles a little bit because that's a team at number 8 that you thought may really be in play for quarterback, and maybe that lessens them to take a quarterback if you were in that mindset, Adam, that, hey, there might be 4 quarterbacks taken before number 12. That means that there's a good amount of players that fall backwards to you because all these teams start to take a quarterback. So I guess that you could say they still could take a quarterback, but it would really seem to be a surprise if they take one at number 8, having just traded for Sam Darnold. No,
right. And that to me, actually, I'm going to text someone the Panthers as we speak here. I'm just very curious about how they feel about it. But it's
from a Panthers.
It's interesting.
Today, I didn't answer that call. I probably should have done that.
Yeah, so I'm very interested to see what happens here. This is interesting to me to see what they're going to do here for sure.
Well, let's talk quarterbacks here and kind of 3 weeks out, because if you kind of set the quarterback draft board now, knowing what we know with this Sam Darnold trade, how do the executive, the personnel people around the league kind of rank this group of guys 3 weeks ahead of the NFL draft?
Oh, wait, which position? I'm sorry, which position are you talking about?
Looking at the quarterbacks.
Yeah, all right. So, and this is interesting that this trade just went down. The Panthers clearly, first of all, they've been trying to get Deshaun Watson. They're out of the Deshaun Watson acquisition race. That was not going to happen. They were the strongest on him, and that takes him out of it. Now, when you look at the quarterbacks, we know who the top 2 guys are. Zach Wilson is going to go number 2 now that Darnold has moved. We know that Zach Wilson, the quarterback from BYU, is going to go at number 2. The question is, who's going to go number 3, 4, and 5 at the quarterback position? So it's Lawrence and Wilson. Now, is it going to be Justin Fields, Mac Jones, or Trey Lance? Justin Fields is a guy right now that if you looked at Jones and Lance, Fields is the better of the 3 in terms of upside potential, athleticism, arm strength. Mac Jones is the accurate guy who's more ready to play probably right away. So to me, I think when you look at it with Justin Fields, he's the guy who's most, when you look at upside and athleticism and arm strength and every size and everything, he's got the total package of the guys from 3 to 5. It's Lawrence, it's Wilson, then Fields. I believe Mac Jones goes before Trey Lance. Trey Lance is more of a project for down the line, where in fact one personnel man said he thinks it's a redshirt year for him. He's got to learn. He just has a lot of challenges. Because remember, he only played one game this past season. He's got some things to clean up with his mechanics, but he's a really good kid, pretty smart. It's going to take time to build him. But I think of those three, I think Fields is the guy.
It's so hard, Adam, too, because this world that we live in, you draft a guy that high, everybody wants him to play right away. It's really hard to swallow drafting a guy that high and then sitting him. And the Jets just kind of ran into this. They didn't want to draft a quarterback at number 2 and have him sit there behind Sam Darnold for a year. They wanted to get that asset right on the field as fast as they could. So, it's really hard for these teams to take a player that high. So the question I have is, are all these players going to be quote unquote taken that high? In other words, are they going to be in the top 15?
Yeah. All right. So here's okay. Let me give you the Mike. Let me give you sort of like the area I see where these quarterbacks are going to go. The earliest Fields would go would be obvious to number 3 with the 49ers. I want to get into that pick as we speak right now. If you just look from the West Coast offense, who's the best fit of those 3 that we mentioned before? That would be Mac Jones. He's a West Coast offensive quarterback. What do I mean? Short area, get it out of your hands. Throw it forward, go get it. That is the type of offense that Kyle Shanahan runs. He's not only the head coach and play caller, he is personnel control. He would fit really well, but what you're doing is he's not a great athlete, and you're ignoring the fact that he doesn't have a very good arm. Some teams I know for a fact have an early second-round grade on him. But again, it's what you're willing to accept with Mac Jones. We talked about Fields. I think the earliest he goes would be number 3. The latest he would go would be 15 to the Patriots. Mac Jones, now that he's not going to – he was not – the Panthers, I understand it, we're not interested in him. But if Mac Jones does not go to number 3, he may drop a little bit. Okay, he may drop a little bit. I also would put him. I don't think he would get past Belichick at 15 in the Patriots. The Patriots are in a position now, Mike, that they've got to get a quarterback. They have to get a developmental quarterback sooner rather than later. We know that Cam Newton is on the roster. Jarrett Stidham is not going to be the guy. We know that. They had an opportunity to play him late last season. They declined to do it. They let Cam finish out the season. So I think when you look at it, and you're the Patriots, this is the time for you to go get a quarterback. One of those guys should be there. You could trade up to do that. And then look, Lance, I think, still goes in the first round. He's going to go somewhere between 15 and 26 or 27, that area. I think he goes probably the earliest is 15. But as we've learned in this draft, when Tim Tebow went in the first round, I was shocked. Things happen, and you mentioned it, the quarterback position. We don't have access to what everybody's thinking. Things happen crazy at the quarterback position. Mark Sanchez is a top 10 pick. He got to 2 AFC championship games. We would all argue. We know what happened there. Great defense, great running game with the Jets. Didn't ask him to throw the ball out, but you know what? They won with him. It's a quarterback position. Guys get overdrafted all the time.
They do, and I wonder, like the Eagles sitting at 12, are they a prime team to take calls from teams behind them? Because there's not – I mean, you have the Patriots at 15. That would seem to be one. How many teams behind Philadelphia is interested in moving up to get into that spot? So I'm wondering, this Darnold trade has really spent some dominoes here to say, hey, are teams going to say, hey, I got to get into the 12 range? Because now that Carolina might not take a guy, there might be a second quarterback kind of working their way back towards me, and I got to jump the Patriots. I find like this whole little deal has just added another layer of intrigue to being at the number 12 spot.
Yeah, look, because right now, let's look at the quarterback position. After the Niners, Atlanta could take one. I mean, they are a really bad football team. They need to rebuild their roster. They're in a rebuild similar to the Eagles.
A lot of dead money in Matt Ryan the next 2 years.
Yeah, well, they're not cutting him, no, but let me finish. They're not drafting a quarterback to play this season. Matt Ryan is the quarterback. We know that. They need a rebuild. They're worse off than the Eagles. It's close, but they're worse off than the Eagles. But at some point, they have to figure out who the future quarterback is. But you're right. They're not trading them. The contract. I mean, it's just the dead money. It depends on your philosophy of dead money. We know the Eagles don't seem to care about dead money, but that's another story for another time. Other teams that could take a quarterback. And Carolina's out for a quarterback. Denver at number 9, I absolutely in play for a quarterback. Okay, they could do that. Dallas obviously is not going to do that. The Giants are not going to do that. The Eagles are not going to do that at number 12. So to your point, maybe there's some teams that would trade up if these guys drop. That would see what I was telling Jeff on our show this morning is, boy, if you're an Eagles fan, you really want those 4 quarterbacks to be drafted. 4 quarterbacks to go off the board through a number 11. Then you're really looking that you're going to be able to get one of those top corners or top receivers. Now the Carolina's most likely out of the quarterback race at 8. I don't know.
Very interesting stuff. Sam Darnold traded. It's a 6th-round pick this year, a 2nd next year, and a 4th next year. So a 2nd and a 4th next year and a 6th-rounder this year. Sam Darnold traded to Carolina, who now have Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold on that roster. So I guess that they could get calls on Bridgewater, maybe.
They've tried, Mike. They've made him available. Nobody really wants him. He's got a, not that you would cut him if you're trading him, but he's got $10 million of his $17 million fully guaranteed. He was very average.
Yeah.
They tried to move him. No one's wanted him. Right now, Teddy's on the roster and he'll compete against Darnold. But here's what I would also tell you about the Panthers. It does not preclude them from drafting a quarterback later, as early as the 2nd round. But I just don't see it at 8 because Darnold, to me, this guy's a former 1st-round pick. He's got ability. He didn't play well last season. I get it. It's a fact. That's what personnel people and coaches tell me who graded his tape from last season. But the Panthers are in a position where they wanted to potentially upgrade the quarterback position. Darnold could be that guy. And you know what? Joe Brady, their OC, runs a pretty good offense, quarterback friendly.
All right. By the way, not to put you on the spot or anything here, but after the group of 1st-round quarterbacks, what does that next group of quarterbacks kind of look like? Because you would think Philly would be in play for a developmental backup here. We talked a little bit about that Friday, but what does that next group of guys look like?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be, to me, for the Eagles. We actually talk about this on tomorrow's show. We'll give you a little hint. Our next show on the Inside the Birds platform is the Inside the Draft with Greg Cosell. And Greg breaks down those quarterbacks rounds 3 to 5. It's really funny you brought that up because that was really something that Jeff and I wanted to make sure. And I'll give you one hint. Listen to what he has to say about Kellen Mond, who I know a lot of coaches around the National Football League like. That's the area where Mond might go off the board. Ellinger a little bit later. There's some good mid-rounders, which we're going to talk about on tomorrow's show and future shows. But now here's the question, Mike. The Eagles right now have 11 draft picks. It doesn't mean they're going to have 11 by the time the draft starts or even midway through the draft. They might wind up having 9. So that might throw a wrench into them drafting a quarterback. I'm sure they like to have one. They need a 3rd quarterback. You can't go to training camp with just 2. That doesn't happen. So they'll add one. I do believe, like most people, and I think you're saying that, and we agree with you, that it's going to be probably a quarterback from rounds 3 to 5.
By the way, Kyle Trask played at Florida. Brian Johnson, his coach, is now the Eagles quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Maybe mid-round selection there. Just keep that in mind. Real quick, before I want to look at the wide receivers too, but Joe Flacco, I was off when that happened, and I didn't hear what you had to say about that. But I have heard that Flacco is not the easiest, not the most willing mentor type of guy. Like him as a backup, do you think that fit is a good kind of synergy fit for behind Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, Joe is not looking to retire. I don't know that he'll ever be a starting quarterback again, but the way the coaches around the National Football League told me about him after they graded his tape for free agency, if you're bringing him in, he's not going to be your starting quarterback. You want someone who's done it before. He's been there and done that. I understand he's not the quarterback he once was. I wouldn't argue that.
Yeah.
One of his 4 games is good. The New England game was fantastic, just based on tape study. The others were shaky. But remember, he had no training camp because he was not cleared to practice until September. So he didn't really have those guys to work with. So that hurt him. But he's going to be good for the quarterback room. He's a guy who's, again, been there, done that, Super Bowl MVP. He's going to be challenging in practice because Joe Flacco is a lot of things. One thing is a big time NFL arm. He's going to improve the competition of practice. We know that if we get through the draft and Jalen Hurts is still the starter, he's going to be the starter of the season. It's just a matter of do they make any trades or anything like that. I would take Deshaun Watson off the board, though. That ain't happening.
All right.
Based on what we know now. But again, Flacco is good for what they want him to do. He's absolutely perfect. This is what coaches think, in particular, with the National Football League. They've all mentioned the same thing. He's gonna challenge you in training camp. That's what they want for the young quarterback.
All right, a look at the quarterback position after the trade today and the draft coming up. The Eagles at 12. Let's take a look at how the top wide receivers are viewed by NFL teams. You've really got Chase, Waddle, Smith. Everybody knows about those three, but is there also a fourth guy, and who is that fourth guy?
Yeah, so Chase, I have him going off the board from picks 5 to 7. No one that I've talked to, I always talk to a lot of receiver coaches. They don't care that he didn't play last season. They've done their background on character. It's pretty good. He is the most complete receiver for this draft. As one receivers coach told me, quote, does everything well, very well. Hard to find a true weakness, which is what you're looking for if you're going to spend a high first-round pick on him. Jalen Waddle is the second best graded receiver for this draft. Should go off the boards anywhere from 5 to 7. Devontae Smith, who's built like Deshaun Jackson, but he's taller, unbelievably explosive. He's a playmaker. The issue that you have is he's 6 feet and only 170 pounds. Do you know that Deshaun Jackson, as a rookie, was 166 pounds? And Deshaun is about 2.5 inches shorter. So he's going to have to put on weight. Some teams are concerned about that. And now, the fourth guy to go off the board, it is absolutely debatable. If you bring up somebody else, I got no problem with it. But Rashad Bateman from University of Minnesota, good size, run after the catch. He's not a burner. His 40 time is 4.3. He doesn't play to that speed. He plays to the mid 4.4s, but he's tough. He's smart, highly skilled, terrific route runner. Late first, early second. If you're from the Eagles and you don't get that receiver in the first round, you may be able to get him the second. He's going to go probably no further than the Eagles when they pick in the second round. He may go before that. Good football player, very underrated, and a favorite of a lot of receiver coaches.
Yeah, he. By the way, Eagles have picked 37 in round 2. They also have 2 third-round picks. So if he's fallen, they might be.
That
able
would
to
shock me. Yeah, I don't see that. Look, could he go? He absolutely could be on the board for the Eagles early in the second round. There's no question what. But I'm saying he's a top 40 pick is kind of where I hear.
Yep. Bateman's my favorite of the next group of guys. By the way, all right.
There you go.
The other spot that the Eagles would definitely be in play at 12 would be corner. So how are the top 3 corners viewed in this draft by teams?
Oh yeah, we break this down on today's show, but again, it's debatable. The guys I trust say it's Horn, it's Surtain Jr. It's really Surtain the second. It's funny that their sons of former NFL players. It's pretty cool. Now, Caleb Farley. I've got him going. I still think he goes in the first round. I may wind up being wrong, but I just don't get the feeling that he's off everybody's board for the first round. He's had 2 back procedures. The second one had nothing to do with the first one. What happened was I think he was lifting weights and he had either herniated disc or disc issue, which got corrected, and it's not going to be a problem. But you have to remember, though, he had a knee injury. See, his story is unbelievable, Mike. High school quarterback, was recruited to play receiver, moved to corner after his redshirt freshman year because of the knee injury, only played corner for 2 seasons, and he was unbelievable. So think about it. If he didn't have the back issue, it's not out of the question he could have been the first corner taken. It's a pretty remarkable story and a really good kid from what I understand. So these are the top 3 corners. It's not close. It's just a matter of where teams are on this medical situation.
Yeah, the thing, Sidney Jones was supposed to be a first-round pick. He had the medical, not the same injury, by the way. He had a Achilles tear, dropped to round 2. We know the Eagles scooped in and got the second round.
Yeah.
So
different story, Mike. We talk about that, just so you know. We talked exactly about what you just brought up, and it's completely different. It was just medical. Sidney Jones, I'll just give you a hint. Sidney Jones had an issue with competition, and the coaches got down on him because he just got down on himself, and I'm glad that he's revived his career with Jacksonville. It's a good story.
By the way, the new Inside the Birds podcast dropped 6:00 Inside the Draft. Greg Cosell Q&A with Quentin Michael, Jason Avant. That's also on the Inside the Birds platform. The guys will have a new Inside the Birds podcast Thursday morning, 6 a.m. And of course, we have you here, football at 4 each and every day, leading you to the draft all off season long. And, of course, a lot of NFL news. Sam Darnold traded, as Adam kind of mentioned right at the top of this conversation. So we'll continue on that and more. Adam, good pinch hitting today. I guess see you for a while. I won't see you for a while now. By the way, this was purchased at the Mall of America in Minnesota. How about that?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah, that's actually pretty good. That's a pretty cool top right there.
There you go. Little Super Bowl
collector's item, man. The smallest Radio Row in captivity.
That's right. Inside the food court at the Mall of America. All right, Adam. I'll see you, man. All right, Adam Kaplan, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He and Geoff doing a little flip-flop. Geoff will be in on Friday's show to do a little football at 4 for Adam. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. All right, coming up. By the way, that trade, it kind of knocked us both out of there because that happened right as we were coming on. Sam Darnold traded. So we want to look at the quarterback situations now in the NFL. Really intrigued by this. What does it mean for the draft? How does that impact other draft choices and opportunities for the teams that were involved there? The Jets now, we know what they're doing. Transparency out the window. Jets are taking a quarterback. Not that we didn't think they were. Now it's official. But what about Carolina? They got Teddy Bridgewater. Now they have Sam Darnold. So now what? Who's in play for quarterbacks? We'll take a look at all that and more on the Sports Bash. This hour brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Look, today's a great day to prop swap. Got the national championship game. You could get that ticket and try to sell it before that game starts. Sell it at halftime if you have to, depending on what the score is. Got the Masters this weekend. All right, we're going to get into that draft, that trade, and everything more. Coming up next on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. 428, the Sports Best this hour brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets and take your profit. Find out how at PropSwap.com or download the Prop Swap app today. Bob Wankel talks Phillies with us in about 12 minutes, so stick around for that. I got another 4-pack of Flyers tickets to give away, and I will do that here momentarily. I'll tell you how in just a second. But first, I want to remind you, Sports Bash Cash, another code word coming. The code word at 4:55. Take the code word, enter it on our website, 973ESPN.com, or use the free mobile app. You can win $1,000. We're up to 10 grand thanks to Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union for all your lending needs. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, we told you earlier, the Eagles over-under win total, 6.5. You going over or under? 6.5, over, under, 6.5. That's the number from the Vegas odds that were released recently from different sports books out there. Masters weekend, by the way, is this weekend. You got the Masters, the NCAA tournament ending tonight, opening day of baseball. Down the stretch they come in the NBA and the NHL seasons. The NFL draft is on the way. April is a very underrated month of sports when it comes down to it. It's got all these unique events. The NCAA tournament, which is like my favorite event of the year. I know a lot of people, like when you talk about an event, the NCAA tournament is not college basketball. That's an event. The Preakness, the Derby, the Triple Crown, that's an event. The Masters is an event. Those are events. They're not just like college basketball. That's an event that is just the cool part about college basketball is the season that leads you into this great event. And it all comes to a close tonight. You saw the Final Four Saturday night with one of the, I would say, that shot, the overtime winner, is probably second or third most memorable shot. It would be right here. It would be Chris Jenkins hitting the three, right? Because that's the championship game, so that trumps. North Carolina hits a shot. He comes down, hits the three. Bang, Villanova wins it. It's probably the most famous shot in NCAA history. Number two, you can make an argument that Christian Laettner hitting the shot against Kentucky or Suggs the other night. Right? Is there another one that I'm forgetting about that needs to be entered onto the list of shots that are like the best shots of all time in an NCAA tournament? Now, there's other ones in the round, in like the first round, but I'm talking about in the most important games. Like there were some underdogs. What was the kid? Bryce Drew for Valparaiso. I mean, that one's played all the time. When he hit that shot, right wing, bang. I remember West Virginia fan, Jared West hit a shot from like 3/4 court and banged it in to beat the Cincinnati Bearcats, then coached by Bob Huggins to advance. That was like 1998. I mean, there's been some great shots, but they were early round shots. Those first round couple games, first, second round games, they are great shots, but they don't compare to what we saw the other night. I mean, that game is to go to the championship. And the best part about it is when Suggs shot that, he knew it was going in. He shot that and ran towards it like, bang, I got this. All right, 609-403-0973. 609-403-0973. So what I want you to do, we got a 4-pack of tickets, right, to go to see the Flyers play tomorrow night. I got a 4-pack of tickets to go see the Flyers play tomorrow night. The Flyers have just announced who is in goal tonight. I want you to text me who is in goal tonight for the Flyers. And the first person who can find that information and text it to 609-403-0973. First person in will win a 4-pack of tickets to go see the game tomorrow night. The Flyers By the way, so follow Kevin Durso. He just tweeted it out at Kevin_Durso. He just tweeted it out. Who the Flyers goaltender tonight will be. Find Durso on Twitter and enter the answer in your text message at 609-403-0973. And that person will get a 4-pack of tickets to go see the game tomorrow night against the Boston Bruins. Simple as that. Find Durso on Twitter. Tell me who's in goal tonight for the Flyers. It's a 50-50 guess, by the way. I guess you can add Lyon into the mix, and I just gave you a hint. It's not Lyon. By the way, the first answer was wrong. I mean, I gave you the answer. I told you where the answer was. Just follow Durso on Twitter at Kevin_Durso. I mean, he says Alex Lyon, the first guy. That's unbelievable. So find Durso on Twitter. He has the answer. There you go. The announcement was just made literally 3 minutes ago by Elaine Vigneault. So there you go. That's what you need to do. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the free mobile app, and we're giving you tickets to go see the game tomorrow night. We have another pair of tickets to give away. I'm going to give another pair of tickets away before the end of this hour. But this pair of tickets, it's a 4-pack of tickets to tomorrow night's game. Who's starting in goal tonight for the Flyers? Follow Kevin Durso on Twitter at Kevin_Durso and tell us who that is on the text board. By the way, Sam Darnold traded to the Panthers. It's a 6th-round pick this year, a 2nd and 4th-round pick next year. I don't know. Did they get enough? Joe Douglas made that trade, by the way. Good deal by Joe Douglas. 2nd-round pick for a guy that they drafted, number 3 overall? Yeah, they got less for Darnold than they got for Wentz. So who got a better deal, Joe Douglas or Howie Roseman? Right. Joe Douglas, the football guy, or Howie Roseman. I'm glad you brought that up, by the way, Josh. By the way, Todd Rank's going to join me in the 5 o'clock hour. How about that? Yeah, you got excited. We're going to do more of Rank pop-ins. Now that we have this video, Rank's all about the video. He likes the video. All right, we'll have the winner for that. By the way, Bob Wankel's coming up to talk a little Phils. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. By the way, congratulations to Paul Westcott. He just won a 4-pack of tickets. He got the answer right. Brian Elliott is in goal tonight for the Flyers. All you had to do, follow Kevin_Durso for that. By the way, who made a better deal for their disappointing quarterback? Wentz, the number 2 pick, got a third-round pick this year and what could be a first-round pick next year. Joe Douglas got a 6th-rounder this year, a 2nd-rounder next year, and a 4th-rounder next year. Who did better, Douglas or Roseman? I'd like to pit those two guys up. The football guy up against the most hated man in the Delaware Valley. Bob Wankel's back. Talk a little Phils, as they have been a hot topic of conversation today. Bob Wankel, who joins me now here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Who made the better deal, Douglas or Roseman? How about that?
Oh, I'm not a huge Howie Roseman guy, but I think he got the better of that. I guess Carson Wentz's track record, at least he's done something at some point, even if it was 4 years ago. Yeah, I would go with Roseman's deal on that one.
All right, so he wins something in this town. It's amazing. It's unbelievable. Good weekend for the Phils, and I thought what was interesting about it, Bob, was, we talked a little bit about it on Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, the opener, we were like, okay, they won the opener because of pitching and defense. The pitching didn't go away, amazingly enough. You got two I think you can rank them, Wheeler, Eflin, Nola, the way they pitched. I'm not saying that's the way you would rank them in the rotation, but that's an encouraging sign. One of my top 10 predictions this year was that the Phillies' top 3 would be the best 3 in the National League East, and so far that's right.
You're off to a very good start on that front. You couldn't ask for 3 better starts than the Phillies gave, or the Phillies starters gave in that opening series. I mean, they shut down the top of the Braves lineup almost entirely, getting almost 7 innings per guy. I know that, Aaron Nola came up 1 out short on Thursday, but they were sensational. I mean, you couldn't ask for anything more than what they gave you in that opening series against what is, I still believe, going to be one of baseball's 5 best lineups in terms of run production.
Yeah, and I know that they only scored 9 runs over the weekend. We'll get into the offense in just a second. But obviously the starting pitching was outstanding. But really the story has to be that the fact that the bullpen has yet to give up a run. And it seems like, I don't want to say that he's got some favorites or some roles, but he's obviously likes Alvarado. He's a guy he's called on a couple times already. And Neris got the call all 3 days so far.
Yeah, Hector Neris is actually going to be unavailable tonight. Joe Girardi told reporters before the game that he's going to give him a day off. So Alvarado is available. I would imagine if the Phillies are tied or holding a lead late, you would see some combination of Bradley, Alvarado, and probably Connor Brogdon. I think he kind of used that as the hierarchy of the bullpen at this point. Yeah, and I mean, to be honest with you, obviously Hector Neris made things a little bit interesting there in the 9th inning yesterday, but this bullpen to go out and record 22 outs to start the season without allowing an earned run. I tweeted it out yesterday. There was only one time last season that the Phillies bullpen went out in back-to-back games, 2 games in a row, and didn't allow a run. So to do that 3 consecutive games right here at the start is a very, very encouraging sign.
Really is. And you just heard there from Bob, who was on the call with Joe Girardi earlier. Neris will not be available. Connor Brogdon's a guy that we both like. I like him a lot. And you kind of mentioned if Neris kind of falters, that he might be the guy that could be, next up for closer. But I want to ask you about Archie Bradley, not the pitcher, the guy. I know it's kind of hard. I mean, we weren't at spring training this year, not able to kind of get in that locker room. But just from the outside looking in, I feel like he's one of those guys that the fans will end up loving, and that he's the kind of guy that if you have the right talent, that he's the right personality, that you would just be like, I really like this guy. So his role on this team more so than just the pitcher.
Yeah. It's an interesting point. One thing I'll say about the Phillies back when we were in the clubhouse, you have to go back to 2019 for this, but it's kind of it's a good group of guys. There's, I think, a lot of good guys in that clubhouse, but it's not a rowdy bunch. It's not like a fierce bunch. And not to say that they're not competitive or that they don't want to win or that they don't show emotion, but just, in terms of what they give to the media, in terms of what they give to the fans, Bryce Harper knows how to play the role, knows how to put the cleats on, knows how to brand himself, and does the bow out in right field. And that's great. But this team doesn't have that many guys that are just like, show a ton of personality outwardly. And so Archie Bradley, I think, does that and gives the fans something to kind of look at and rally behind. But I think he's going to be a really good clubhouse guy in terms of keeping morale up, bringing a little bit of fire, bringing a little bit of energy to what, frankly, I think has been a pretty docile clubhouse over the last couple of years.
I'm glad you brought up the Harper thing because I want to transition over to the offense. And I wrote a little piece about Bohm and what Joe Girardi said, I feel like tells me all I need to know about how they feel of Bohm. And it's that's why we hit him in the middle of the order. We know that he will hit the ball where it's pitched. I almost feel more confident than when he's up to bat than I do anybody else on this team. That includes Harper.
Yeah, I mean, you saw it yesterday. He falls behind 1-2, and the team at large was really struggling with runners in scoring position. I think when he came up in the 8th inning, they were 6 for 26 in the series. The runners in scoring position, like I said, he falls behind, gets a slider, stays back, and just pokes it right up the middle, base hit, gives the Phillies a lead late, and they go on to sweep the series. And you see a lot of younger hitters and really just a lot of hitters across baseball, regardless of age, trying to do too much, especially in big spots, over swinging. And we've talked about it a number of times, just an advanced approach, a mature approach with this kid, and he delivered in that spot there, and I think it speaks volumes about where he's at and his development as a hitter, and Joe Girardi, and I think a lot of people in that organization know it. And I think that ultimately you may see Bohm end up moving into that 4 spot because I think he can give you potentially, and this is no knock on JT Realmuto, but I just think maybe more consistently good at bats and avoid prolonged stretches of slumps and protect Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I love what they said yesterday, that, the fact that he puts the ball in play. He said it himself. I just try to hit it where it's pitched. That's a thing you don't hear all that much. I know Mike Schmidt yesterday on the broadcast, he talked about exit velo. He said, I don't know that that's a stat that really has a lot of value behind it. I know we were kind of talking about that yesterday, but that to me, Bohm is that guy. Like, he'll hit the ball the other way. He sprays it to the gap. He's just going to punch it over the first baseman's head. He's an old school type of hitter, but he's a productive hitter. And I love the fact that the Phillies are entrusting him and putting him in the middle of the lineup instead of starting him in the back end of that lineup, which kind of struggled in the first series. They only scored 9 runs. I don't think we're all that worried about this lineup, but is there anything from that first series that maybe they looked to tinker?
I don't know. I think they'll probably stay the course here for at least a little bit. Given that they were coming off the series that they just had against the Braves, frankly, it's interesting you brought this up. I was going to ask Joe Girardi today. I talked about the approach they're going to take with him tonight. Do you try to get him early? If he's trying to get ahead in the count, do you want him to attack? Or do you want to try to grind out pitches and, run them up to 70, 80 pitches by the time the 3rd, 4th inning rolls around? Like, ideally. I didn't ask him that, though. What I really wanted to ask is, how long do you stay with what you have in center field? Because I don't know about you, but I wasn't really impressed with what I saw in center field throughout the spring, and I wasn't really impressed with what I saw in center field this past weekend. I think Adam Hazley had a couple hits. One was a bunt single. Thought he misplayed a ball out in center field that Ian Anderson singled on yesterday. I thought he took a poor route to the ball, and Roman Quinn struck out in 4 out of his first 5 at bats. So, like, how much rope do these guys get? How much time do you have? It's certainly with Quinn. I know he made a defensive play on Thursday that helped them win the game, but at some point you have to put together some type of competitive at bat, and he hasn't done that in very small sample. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there. But the offense in general, I wouldn't panic, and I wouldn't panic if they struggle tonight. You're facing the National League's best pitcher over the last handful of years, and I just would not press that panic button. There's a large enough sample of success from this lineup and enough good hitters in this lineup that I wouldn't really be overly concerned until you reach the 10-15 game mark. If they're not doing it at that point, then I think you might make some adjustments.
Right. And I guess the next follow-up question would be, what's that adjustment? Is it Mickey Moniak, or do you make a 40-man move and go with Odubel Herrera? It's kind of hard. You don't have a season going on down there to see, hey, Herrera's down there hitting 475. He's just murdering AAA pitching. We got to do something. So that makes this even, or Kingery. He's not involved in everyday bats. Although, real quick on that, did you find it interesting that they listed Kingery as an infielder in the player pool?
Yeah, I did. I think that kind of lets you know where they're at with him. I think that their course moving forward with Scott Kingery is that if he's going to have success in this organization, he's probably going to do it as a middle infielder, as a second baseman, more likely than not. Let's stop, moving him in from, playing middle infield back to the outfield, moving him back and forth. So, yes, I did notice that, and I think that that's the way they're going with him moving forward. I don't know what the move is. You said it. There's not minor league games that you can look at this point. Yes, they're getting live at-bats. Yes, they're working out on a daily basis. Obviously, you have to trust your coaches, your scouts that you have down there taking a look at these guys. I would imagine they'd probably wait a week or two, probably at least 2 weeks before they make any type of roster moves, unless it's an injury-prompted type of situation. In terms of anything else that you would adjust offensively, I mean, maybe you tinker with the lineup a little bit. I could see Alec Boehm slotting in as your cleanup hitter moving forward. I don't think that that's out of the question. But right now, again, just way too early to do anything, especially if you're winning games. You give these guys every opportunity to kind of just feel their way through the start of the season.
All right, Bob, we had some questions from our viewers and listeners today that I want to get your take on that has to do with some of the pitching on this team. Now, we saw the first three guys that really obviously sparkled. So who are the guys, Moore and Anderson? Somebody said this. Let me pull this one up. All right. I don't know that I agree with this. Don't be fooled by one weekend. This team is still in desperate need of starting pitching. Do you concur with that?
I guess it depends how you define desperate. I really believe in the first three starters. I'm a Zach Eflin guy. I expect him to make a jump this season. And I don't think that what you saw yesterday is going to be the standard. I'm not telling you that he's going to be a National League All-Star or one of the 10 best pitchers in the National League, but I really do believe that he can be a quality number 2, number 3 starter on a playoff rotation. I believe that. I don't know what you're going to get out of Matt Moore or Chase Anderson. I think you need one of them to be pretty good, and then you can have some inconsistency from the other guy. I think that they have enough with this rotation to win, but they're thin. And if one guy gets hurt, like if a Wheeler or a Nola or an Eflin goes down, then yes, I would agree with that statement.
Yeah, Eddie wants to know, how do you think the 4 and 5 will be? That is Moore and Anderson. I mean, those two guys Anderson has been just a competitive guy. If he goes 9 and 8 or 8 and 9, I think you're thrilled. Moore's really the wild card.
Yeah, I look at both of these guys, and I think that they're going to give you quality competitive starts on most nights. I don't think they're ever going to go out and really dazzle you. I don't expect 7 innings, 2 earned runs or less from Matt Moore too many times through the rotation, but I do think that he can go out and keep you in a game. And really, when you get to that spot in the rotation, go across baseball. You look at guys number 4s, or you look at teams number 4s, number 5s. There are very few teams that are trotting out guys in those slots in the rotation where you say, oh, wow, look out. You're going to have your hands full tonight. I think both of these guys are veterans that can go out, be competitive, and give you a chance to win on most nights.
Here's one more about pitching. In other words, if the pitching can stay healthy, does it guarantee they win the division? I don't know if guarantee win the division, but I said it can guarantee that they are in the playoff mix if they stay healthy all season.
Yeah, that's been my expectation really since the start of spring training. I don't know if this team is a playoff team or not, but I do believe it's a team that can win and probably will win somewhere in the 85 to 88 game range. That's what I think. And a lot of that's obviously dependent upon the offense performing at the standard that we expect. But I think that there's enough pitching here right now that they will be competitive. And at the very least, I can say this. I believe that this front office will be in a position come the middle of July, the end of July, where they're going to want to add to what they have. I really believe that. I think that this is a team that will be positioned to make a playoff run, and I think that this front office will do something to try to add to what's here so that they can finally get to the finish line.
And Doug adds in 3 wins without Harper or JT as factors is eye-opening. Well, and that's because the pitching and the bullpen was so good. It's not because their offense picked up the slack for those guys so much. It was because they scratched out a couple of runs and had great pitching and defense.
Yeah, best part of this weekend for me was that the Phillies played a very good baseball team, did not do what they do well, and still came away with 3 wins. And I think that good teams, probably cliche to say this, find a different way to win every single night. And I think that the way that the Phillies won these 3 games, considering it's something they didn't do a year ago, is the thing that you should be most encouraged about from what you saw this weekend.
Now, they did sweep the Braves in 2019, and that ended up Braves win the division, Phillies win 500. So let's, it's fun, it's exciting. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about that, though, is that Atlanta took their 3 best shots this past weekend against this Phillies team. That 2019 series was a little bit different. Atlanta had a lot of injuries in the starting rotation. They were starting young guys that weren't ready for those games, guys that weren't their number 2, number 3 type starters in those games. So the Phillies sort of took advantage of I guess, an advantageous situation. Whereas this was, hey, this is our best, this is your best. And they went out and they won those games. So this is a little different this year.
Bob Wankel crossing broad. We'll be back on Friday as we'll 13 games against the NL East to start things off. Tough start as Will Ham, who's watching on Facebook, kind of chronicles there. All right, Bob, we'll see you Friday, man.
Mike, talk to you soon, man.
All right, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. When we come back, Todd Rank joins me for the 5 o'clock hour here on the Sports Bash. We'll have a little fun with the NCAA National Championship game. Sam Darnold traded. He's a Carolina Panther now. Back with more Sports Bash. Don't go away. Code word is HAND, HAND, HAND. Enter it now on our website, 973ESPN.com, or use the free mobile app. Sports Bash Cash is brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union for all your lending needs. Get the next Sports Bash Cash code word at 555. Final hour of the show, and we've got that final pair or final 4-pack of Flyers tickets to give away. And here's what you need to do. All right? It's pretty simple. First person that can do this. Thursday's show. On Thursday's show, we will have one of the Philadelphia Eagles on the program. All right? One of the Philadelphia Eagles will be on the show Thursday. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. It's pinned to the top of the page who that Eagles player will be. Thursday's show. Text in 609-403-0973 and tell me who that player is. And the first person who does it, 4-pack of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow night. 4-pack of tickets to the Flyers game tomorrow night against Boston. First person who finds out who that is. One of the Philadelphia Eagles players will be on the show Thursday. It's a pretty prominent player, by the way. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. First person who finds it and text me in at 609-403-0973. You'll get a 4-pack of tickets to the game tomorrow night. Flyers and Bruins, thanks to the Philadelphia Flyers. All right, Todd Rank is back. He is with me on the video screen. We're going to hang out from time to time and just talk a little nonsense and fun. By the way, where did you end up finishing in the bracket? I mean, I know we got another game tonight, but you had a shot. You had it, man. It was right there for you.
I mean, it was that close. I had to go with you have to go with a sleeper in those brackets, right? Because otherwise you need those picks in the very beginning. There's so many people who had Baylor Gonzaga. I had Houston and Gonzaga, and that was my sleeper. And again, I didn't watch a lot of it this year, so it was tough to gauge it. I thought it was a good pick. It got Houston to the Final Four, but they were simply not a match for that Baylor team. They just absolutely demolished them. I think most people thought that was going to be the result of the UCLA game.
We were trying to figure out your path to victory because you had said it was between you and then two buddies of ours that had a shot, and you were so far down. I'm thinking, how did you have a shot? But you had that Houston game, and that's where you were going to make up those points. So if you were to win it, you needed Houston to win over Baylor and then Gonzaga to beat Houston.
But not even. That was the beauty of it. Nobody had Houston anywhere. So if Houston just made it to the championship against Gonzaga, I would have been sitting pretty tonight with a nice win. Instead, I'm watching the game just for the fun of it. But, our buddy Pete G, our old producer, he was in the mix for a minute there, but he's going to come just outside of the money. He's going to fall just outside.
Right. One of my college buddies, Joey Meltons, looks like he's going to win, and our other buddy, Brian. So it's basically if Gonzaga wins, this guy wins. If Baylor wins, the other guy wins. It's as clear as that right now.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. It's not as clear as we go into the game tonight who I think is going to win this game, because I thought Gonzaga was clear after seeing Baylor on Saturday. My goodness, they looked really good. And I got to say, I mean, Gill, you probably watched them more than I did. Obviously, they're in the West Virginia division, but I didn't see enough of them this year. They look real impressive. So I'm excited to see the game tonight, because also you got the Zags who went to overtime with UCLA. So they made their legs, although they're young kids, those legs start to get you a 2-day turnaround.
All right, so did you watch the Final? You were watching. I mean, I was getting text messages. You guys were into that ladies' Final Four was better than the men's. I mean,
well, I wondered about that when you would wake up the next morning, because I must have blitzed you and PG with about 30 texts in a row, because I thought the refereeing in those games was egregious. I mean, I couldn't believe those referees had a job and that they're supposed to be the best ones in the Final Four. I mean, there was bad call and missed call after missed call. It was terrible.
I mean, I couldn't believe the amount of text messages I woke up to about that ladies' Final Four. I mean, did you watch that national championship game last night?
I did, and let me tell you, that Arizona team, man, that's the team that kept on going. I mean, for them to beat on Friday a UConn team that everybody had, obviously, every year they've got them in the final game. That, by the way, that's the fourth year in a row now that UConn has gone out in the semifinals.
Yeah.
So it's that was a big win for Arizona, but there's always a letdown, you would think, after beating UConn. And I'll tell you, they came down to the last shot. The difference in the women's game, let me tell you this, Gill.
They shoot the ball way better.
Well, not only that, But on the last play of the game, Stanford, Arizona, Stanford literally triple teamed the point guard. You cannot do that in college basketball. You cannot do that in the NBA because there are enough other good players. You triple team the best player. I'm sorry, there's going to be another player who's going to beat you. Arizona, that girl literally took the shot running backwards because she's the best player on the team.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you then. All right, I did not see the two women's games, but rank the women's Final Four games and the championship and then the Baylor UCLA game.
What's that setup? The Gonzaga UCLA overtime.
That Gonzaga game. Gonzaga UCLA overtime winner. That has to be, I would say, the Jenkins shot from Villanova a couple of years ago is the most memorable shot in NCAA because it's the championship game. The Leitner shot versus that shot the other night. The Leitner Kentucky shot, that game, and then the shot last night. I mean, those are the next two on the list, right?
They have to be. And I guess I would only say that maybe we show our age in that I would choose the Leitner shot still to this day. But, man, that was unbelievable finish. And to go to overtime, and the storylines of that game, Mike, were the difference. You've got UCLA, who's usually Goliath. This year, Gonzaga's trying to be Goliath, and really UCLA was David. You've got the 11 seed versus a 1 seed. Nobody gives them any chance. They're 15-point underdogs. And for them to take it to overtime, and then Juzang to actually get the putback to look like, all right, we're going to double overtime. Just an unbelievable ending. And I got to say, and I would question this to you, would you rather, if you're UCLA, lose by 8 or 10? No. Or would you rather lose on a shot like that, which wasn't – people can say he knows he can make that shot. That was still a Hail Mary in a sense. He banked it running forward.
He knew that was going in. He shot that with confidence.
Yeah, just like I do in the park, right? I mean, come on. But I mean, does that hurt you worse?
That was like that Weinberg who hit that full short shot in the intramurals against Anthony Beck's team at West Virginia. Were you there that night?
Well, was I there? I was boxing him out like Dennis Rodman. What are you talking about?
Well, I wasn't there. I remember getting the call saying we just knocked off Beck's team in the intramurals. He said Weinberg hit a shot from half court to beat him.
I mean, it's the best game I've ever played as an intercollegiate, whatever you want to call that, intramural, intercollegiate. I bodied up that Beck. That was the best defensive rebounding game I've ever had in my life.
I don't believe he will admit to it. We've had him on the show a few times, and he refuses to say, you got the better of me that game.
Well, he likes to say, I forget. He conveniently forgets that game. But Weinberg was the star. But I tell you, I gave him multiple offensive rebounds.
Right. Now, by the way, here's something that made me feel really old. Anthony Beck, his son, is now being recruited by West Virginia to play quarterback.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old is he's not in school yet? He's going to be a freshman?
He's a quarterback in high school down in like the Tampa area.
Okay.
He's one of the top quarterback recruits in the country.
Wow.
So obviously his dad goes to West Virginia, so they're in the mix.
Now, have you talked to Anthony? Has he given you any inside information?
I just saw this the other day that he was talking to meeting with them. So he must be a junior or something. But no, I have not talked to him about that. I have talked to him about the fact that his son has been looking at colleges. I see his son's video on Twitter all the time. He's like a highly touted prospect. I said, how weird is that? Your son could play quarterback at the college that you went to, and you're not even all that old. I mean, Beck's only 44.
Right. I mean, that kid, well, I mean, again, if the kid's 17, 27 when he has his kid, that's not, that's about right.
Just time moves, man. Just start moving.
I mean, my 17-year-old Gill, I'm going to be about 65 when I have my 17-year-old. It's going to be a little different. It's going to be a little different game.
Oh, man. So the NCAA National Championship game is tonight. Now, this is the game like 2 years in the making. Baylor and Gonzaga, those two teams probably would have been top seeds again last year. So now you get that game this year. It should be good. I mean, Gonzaga, this is the first time they were pushed all year long. The closest game they had was that West Virginia game. That was the only game they had all year that they didn't have that wasn't double digits.
Well, until the UCLA overtime. And I'll say this.
Yeah.
Does that help them? Does it help them that they had that UCLA game 2 days ago?
I think they showed tremendous composure in that situation. They could have fell apart. You got the 11 seed. You're the undefeated number 1 overall, and this 11 seed's punching you, but they never allowed themselves to get that knockout blow.
Now, you look at Baylor. You've seen them all year. You've watched them more than the Zags, I'm sure, during the season. What are your initial thoughts of this game tonight? Because I'm leaning, believe it or not, I'm leaning to Baylor. I just, the way that they played on Saturday, they look hungry. They look determined. I know Gonzaga has their own mission, but man, Baylor looked good. And they are so well coached, Gill. They don't play, they're not playing at the park. They strategically have such a great game plan, offensively, defensively. And I'll say this, I don't know that Gonzaga is going to be able to contain that point guard. That Mitchell kid is just too good. He is so fast. I can't see them slowing him down. Right now, I think it's sitting at about a 4.5 point dog right now, Baylor is.
Yep. Well,
I'm leaning to Baylor. At least I'll tell you this, if I'm a gambling man, which I haven't for a little while now, I would take Baylor's points. I would definitely take Baylor's points.
You retired from that game.
Well, for now. I mean, maybe next year. I mean, I took a year off. Maybe we'll revisit it next year. But we've done well. The only thing I did was the bracket with you.
It was probably a smart year to take off because it was such an unpredictable type. Although the Zags won every game by double digits, you couldn't make the spread big enough for them for most of the year. So the one thing in that game that is kind of interesting to me is the only way you beat Gonzaga this year is you have to match them offensively. They're such a good offensive team, but I think Baylor could do it.
That's what I mean. I think the matchups really actually benefit Baylor in a lot of ways. Yeah, you got Suggs. He's a stud. And the way Gonzaga plays, right? We were talking about this, the last week or so, Mike. We had talked about the fact that Gonzaga plays almost like a Warriors team, right? The passing, the way that they pass and cut opens up such easy shots for Gonzaga. But the way that Baylor suffocates defensively and tightens the screws internally, I think is going to be the big difference in this game. I don't think Gonzaga is going to get those layups that they usually depend on in a lot of these games. And I think talent-wise, they're now playing a team that is as talented as they are. And when I look at the bench, man, the mullet kid, I don't even know his name. I just reference him as the mullet kid. The kid comes off the bench for Baylor that has a beautiful mullet. And he is a sharp shooter. He's long. He can rebound. They've got a nice bench, Baylor does, that can really help the starters. Is it going to come down to foul trouble? A lot of times it does. If the refs get too involved, then we're going to see what happens. But, I think it's going to be a great game. I'm not going to be surprised if Gonzaga wins, right? They're kind of the favorite. But I'm looking at this Baylor team, Mike, and they looked hungry on Saturday.
Their defense is very versatile, and they have, that's the one thing. I thought UCLA is, they were a fun story, but they're not nearly as talented as this Baylor team. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fun one. Now, Baylor, they had that COVID situation. They had a 3-week pause, so they kind of were struggling when they came out of that, but I think they've kind of gotten past that now, luckily. I'd hate to see that be a part of they're still kind of coming out of it. They seem like they've kind of got out of that. They dominated Houston on Saturday, so that was good.
Well, did that break end up helping them in the long run, right? At first you'd think, well, it's time off. It's kids. It doesn't really matter. But maybe that break physically, emotionally, whatever it is, it gets you geared up and ready to go. So I think it's going to be fun tonight. I'm excited. And I told you, I don't usually watch a lot of women's games, but that Final Four for the women's, I'm going to give them credit for that. There's a separation in talent that you get to those Final Four for the women's game. But the men's game, the tournament as a whole, Gill, I mean, what were your thoughts on the whole tournament? I thought it was exciting. I thought it really kept me interested, even without a lot of fans in the stadium, right?
Yeah. Can you imagine that shot if they hit that shot with a full place, a full house Final Four?
That's the only unfortunate part for Suggs, because it would have been neat for him to have experienced it with a full crowd, right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, like I'm trying to think, like the whole tournament, like I thought, you had the Cinderella with UCLA, but I don't know. They went from the first four to the final four. Like that story I thought didn't get talked about enough. Overall, I mean, there was a couple of upsets, and you had Oral Roberts was a fun story it seemed like a typical tournament where the last, I mean, you go back to Gonzaga. I was just talking about this the other day. I can remember, heck, we were living together in West Virginia at the time when Gonzaga became Gonzaga. That first year that 1999, they had Morrison, and we're like, who the heck is this team coming out of nowhere? And you think about it, from 1999 to now, they've essentially been in the tournament every single year.
And think about this. That was Mark Few, right? That was him at the beginning. He's now been and stayed at that school for 20 some years or 20 years about. And when we talk about teams and coaches where Gonzaga was not touted as a Goliath, he turns them into that. Most of the time they get poached. Look at your Loyola team that you love so much this year. Guess what? That coach got poached. That is what happens in college. So a lot of these great stories don't sustain because they don't have that coach that stays there for a long period of time. Mark Few is one of those few guys, and I'm sure he gets offered jobs year after year, Mike. He continues to say, I love it here. I love the school. I love the community, and I want to be a part of it. And why wouldn't he be? It's a step down now if he goes to another school.
Well, it's funny because the North Carolina job just opened. It just got closed, by the way. They hired Hubert Davis, will be the next head coach at UNC. But we were talking about this on Friday. Like, that UNC job, it's got to be one of the top three in college basketball. And you would wonder, like, a guy like Few, or some people mentioned Jay Wright, or the guy from Loyola Chicago, but he already went to Oklahoma, like, with leaving to go to, like, we were talking about this, like, North Carolina is still one of those, like, jobs, but they haven't put a impactful NBA player in the league since when it was like Vince Carter or something, Jerry Stackhouse.
Yeah, well, I was going to say there was, that center Haywood who was supposed to turn into something. He didn't. He's now an announcer. They really haven't had a lot of talent that's come out there and been. I'm trying to think of that one kid, the guard that went to Golden State. I don't know where he's playing now. He kind of moved around a little bit.
Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, Barnes. So, but you're right. I mean, it should be, and they should be able to recruit. The question is, can you recruit? And that's really what it comes down to. Can you promote your college? I mean, Gonzaga needs to get to a championship to showcase their program and then have guys interested to go, I haven't heard of that Gonzaga. I'll go there. UNC, everybody knows UNC. Everybody knows Texas. Everybody knows Duke, right? Those should be schools that get the top talent every year. But right now we've seen Texas slip. We've seen UNC slip. Kansas, we saw them slip a little this year. And again, it also goes, Mike, to the process of, we've talked about this a lot off the air. The NBA, the 1 year, it's changed the complexion of every level of basketball.
Yeah, by the way, your boy Shaka Smart, he left Texas to go to Marquette.
And I'll be honest, I think it's a better fit for him. I really do. He got the shot at the big name college. I never thought it was really turned into a good fit. I think he's better at those kind of, I don't know how you say, is he better at kind of one of those where you got to scrap and claw, right? One of those scrap and claw type of colleges. Marquette always feels like that. They're one of those. I think he fits perfectly as the coach there. Again, I think he was going to, he left. He probably wasn't going to get much more time in Texas anyway because he wasn't making a run in those tournaments.
Right. They went out and got Chris Beard from Texas Tech. Now, Texas step up from Texas Tech, so we'll see how that all works out. But the college game ends tonight, the national championship game. You can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, when we come back, a major trade in the NFL today. Did you see this?
I just saw it.
All right, we will riff on that coming up here on the Sports Bash Live. Todd Rank joins me for another segment coming up on the other side. We'll get the 5 sounds of the day. And, of course, coming up tonight on game night, Frank Close joins Josh to talk a little fight and Phils. They play the Mets. Jacob deGrom is on the mound for the Mets tonight. All right, more Sports Bash on the way. And by the way, congratulations, Brandon McCrane Lane Johnson will be on the show on Thursday. Eagles right tackle Lane Johnson joins me Thursday. He was the first one who figured that out by following me on Twitter at Mike Gill Show. Good job out of Brandon. All right, congratulations to all our winners today of the 4-pack of tickets to see the Flyers play tomorrow night. Also, don't forget another Sports Bash Cash code word coming up for you at 55 after the hour, 5:55, 6:55. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. So a trade in the NFL today. It's very interesting. Sam Darnold traded by the Jets to Carolina. We'll bring Todd Rank back in, the old co-host for the Sports Bash here. We'll do a lot of these pop-ins from time to time now, getting you ready for the draft is coming up. And, of course, the baseball season is here. Phillies are undefeated. Phillies play the Mets tonight. Jake DeGrom against Matt Moore. We got the draft. We got the Sixers down the stretch. So there's a lot happening here. But Sam Darnold traded by the Jets. They get a 6th-round pick this year, a 2nd-round pick, and a 4th-round pick next year. He was the 3rd pick in the draft just 3 years ago. Pretty crazy, huh?
It is crazy. My thought would be, obviously, we know that they're going with a quarterback this year. We just don't know which one. Everybody's saying Zach Wilson, right? But we're not certain on that. But with that being said, this is kind of, to me, a little bit like Carson Wentz in the sense of this. I think Carson Wentz needed a new home. I think Carson Wentz has an opportunity to still be a successful quarterback in this league. Doesn't mean he will. We don't know, right? But if he's healthy and he plays different system, different crowd, different town, expectations different maybe, I think he's going to do better there. I don't know what that means or what it translates to. I think the same can be said for Darnold. I'm not a big Darnold fan, I'm going to be honest with you, but I think this is the best for both scenarios in the sense that he goes to Carolina, new coach. I love the coach. I'm a Teddy Bridgewater guy. Again, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater's an elite quarterback, but I like the kind of quarterback he is. I don't know that he's been given enough chances in his career. Obviously, he had injury too, but you've got Darnold and Bridgewater now in North Carolina, and you've got a chance with Darnold to obviously get the starting position, and he just gives him a new life. And by the way, we all know, I think it's a consensus, that Jets coach was a travesty. I mean, that guy had no business being a head coach in this league. Yeah. And he killed Darnold. And he was supposed to be known for being a great offensive coordinator.
Well, he got the reputation because he was the quarterback coach for Peyton Manning. So people were like, oh, he worked with Peyton Manning. Well, Peyton Manning doesn't need that jackass to help him out. I mean, he's Peyton Manning, for God's sakes. But here's the thing. The Jets either, like Joe Douglas is the new GM there. He's been there for a year. Yeah. So he either thought, like, not highly enough, or I would have thought that I would have said, I got this guy with the number 3 pick. I didn't like the way Gase handled him. I'd like to see how our new coaching staff handles Darnold. You know what I mean? Before I just throw him away. But you have the number 2 pick in the draft. I guess you have to feel so strongly. Basically, Joe Douglas is putting his behind out there. He's saying Darnold wasn't the guy. This guy at number 2 will be the guy. So this is his moment right here. This is Joe Douglas's moment.
Well, we talk about this, Gill, a lot. When these new guys come in, the new GMs, the new, they want their guy. And if Darnold isn't your guy when you got here, it takes a lot for you to say, all right, I'm going to put my reputation, my job on the line with a guy.
You have to follow your convictions.
Yeah.
I don't. But my thing is, like, I don't know. You brought in a new coaching staff. You saw, like, Adam Gase had Tannehill in Miami, and Tannehill was just okay. He goes to Houston, and you're getting the most out of him. So I would have liked to have seen if that would have been the case in this situation. Now, you brought a defensive coach into New York, so maybe they didn't feel that. But I don't know. I feel like
do you think it's good? You think it's good for Darnold, though? Do you think it gives him new life in Carolina?
I do. I mean, I think Darnold's in a spot now. He's got McCaffrey as a very versatile player there. And I wasn't a huge Darnold guy either when he got drafted number 3 overall. I don't like all these quarterbacks, how high these teams just go crazy to draft these quarterbacks. And it's like, guys, like, do you not look at the daddy? Do you not, like, see what goes on out there? Like, I don't get it. I just don't get it. The San Francisco 49ers gave up how many picks to draft a quarterback in this draft?
Well,
did they just give up?
And I don't even think, Mike, that they're going to get the quarterback they want.
Right. You're getting the 3rd best quarterback.
I mean, in all honesty, yes, there might be teams that think, oh, this guy. Trevor Lawrence has been number 1 since day one. Zach Wilson got shot up to number 2, And I think that's genuinely, I believe that's who San Fran truly wants. But the Jets now obviously are playing their hand. They're saying, we got rid of Darnold. We're getting a quarterback in too. Because the other way that the Jets could have gone was, we'll keep Darnold and we'll either get the number one offensive lineman or we'll get the number, right? They could, or get the number one receiver, whatever they wanted to do to help Darnold. The reality is obviously now they're going to go with a quarterback. I don't know that the 49ers, if they're really going to go with Mac Jones from Alabama, ooh, I'm going to be honest with you, Mike. I don't love it.
No,
I don't love it.
I don't love. Look, if I'm trading, I think the 49ers gave up. I mean, man, I got to take a look at that deal with because I was off when that happened. So
they gave up 3 number ones. They gave up, I think, 3 number one or first round picks.
I thought it was 3 number one. I give up 3 first round picks to get the 3rd best quarterback in the draft,
who isn't proven in the NFL yet.
That's what I'm saying. Now, different thing. Like the Eagles have 3 first round picks next year, possibly. If Carson Wentz plays 75% of the snaps, that pick from Indianapolis will turn into a first round pick.
Okay.
They would have their own first round pick. They got Miami's first round pick in the trade to move down to number 12, and then Indianapolis. So they could have 3 first round picks next year. So there's a lot of talk that the Eagles stockpile these picks that they can make a trade for like a Russell Wilson or a Deshaun Watson, but that whole Watson situation has turned into a complete disaster. Who knows what's going on with his future?
Yeah.
But, where there's a quarterback, I would trade 3 picks for someone who I have a resume on, not for the right to draft a guy with look, if you told me I'm drafting the first guy, the guy I really want, fine. You're not even giving me the first choice of my quarterback. I'm getting the 3rd guy who falls to me. That, to me, is egregious.
And look, everybody thinks, these can't miss picks, right? Cam Newton, wasn't he a can't miss pick? Now he's had 1 or 2 good years. Huh?
He did win the MVP of the league.
1 year.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and they went to the Super Bowl. They were 15-1.
But he had 1 year. I mean, that's legitimate.
But here's the thing. Okay, I'm like, you walk me into this conversation. Like, so we get these people all the time. They scream and craze about the Eagles. They only won 1 Super Bowl in his 20 years and yada, yada. I said, you realize, like, Aaron Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. He has 1 Super Bowl. Drew Brees has 1 Super Bowl. People act like getting these guys gives you a free pass to get Super Bowls over and over and over again. I get how important the position is. I'm not downplaying the importance of the position, but these teams ruin their franchises to go get these guys. And if you make a mistake with them, you set yourself back so far. It's crazy to me. Like, I get it. Garoppolo's not great. You were 1 throw away from winning the Super Bowl, and you're essentially saying, no, he's not the guy to make that throw. Okay, I get it, but
and that's a different conversation because that's an interesting one with Jimmy. That's so recent. Now they're more concerned about his injury prone, right? That's what everybody talks about is really the injuries as opposed to how good a quarterback can he be if he's a glass. If he's made of glass and he's breaking every other week, you're not going to get anywhere with him. But when I look at these quarterbacks and the way in which you're deciding your franchise, everything's based on them. Now, the one thing I will say is percentage-wise, Gill, you're right in the sense that Aaron Rodgers only has 1 Super Bowl. But the key to me would be like, I look at Tom Brady. It's not about how many Super Bowls he's won. How many times did his team get to the point of having an opportunity to win? So, for example, the Eagles, they ripped on McNabb back then. McNabb and Reed would get close to the Super Bowl, continue for, 3 out of 4 years. I just want to get to where I can say each year we were in the final 4 or the final 6 teams. At that point, you've given yourself, your team is good enough to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. You're right. You may have the greatest quarterback all time and still only win 1 Super Bowl. But I want to see that my team consistently is making it to the NFC Championship or the AFC Championship. If we don't win it, we don't win it. But, that's where you want to get to. I think that should be the goal of fans is get me there.
I want to win the Super Bowl as much as the next guy, but I can't complain about the last, essentially my adult life, from high school when I started to kind of get into watching sports, and that the Eagles have constantly giving me something to be, like every single year. How many years in 25 years have the Eagles not been relevant? Very few.
Right. And that is true. And that's the key. My thought would be, I want to just let me see a product that I can support, root for, and that is giving me a chance to win either my division every year or, again, you've got quarterbacks that you can trust or feel good about that are going in. And let's not forget, Mike, the Super Bowl the Eagles just won a couple years ago. I'm not going to say it's a fluke because everybody will go nuts. They'll probably call in on your radio station. But let's be honest, guys. The expectation with Nick Foles going into those playoffs that year was not that you were going to win the Super Bowl. That was an unbelievable run, similar to with Giants, Eli Manning, something like that, where you just get hot and you make a 4-game run and you just go.
Well, keep in mind, the year before, they were 7-9. So entering that year, nobody felt that you were going to go from 7-9 to 13-3 and win the Super Bowl. Come on, nobody thought that. So,
and your starting quarterback gets injured.
And this is where, right. And this is where in the NFL, like the over-under for wins for the Eagles this year, it just came out today, is 6.5. Now, remember, there's 17 games this year. They added that 17th game, which I don't really, I don't know. It doesn't push my pile either way.
It doesn't. You know what it tells me? I wrote this immediately when I heard the news. I might have sent it to you and Pete. I said, oh, great. So now the Stars get to rest 2 games instead of 1. Because they're going to rest them week 16 and week 17 or week 17, week 18, however you want to play it. That's what's going to end up happening.
Right. So 6.5 is the number. Now, I keep, going back to that year when the Andy Reid got fired and they won 4 games, and then Chip Kelly got hired. The next year they won 10 games. And what happened the year that Reid was here? If you remember, I think you were doing the show with me at that point, their offensive line, 4/5 of the line got hurt.
Yeah.
And then the next year, that offensive line came back. They were all healthy, and they had the best offensive line in football, and Chip Kelly got a lot of credit for that. But really, they had a healthy offensive line. This team had a similar situation last year where they lost 4/5 of their offensive line and had 13 different line combinations. I think you're going to see a team go from 4 wins. I don't know if they're going to win 10 or 11, but I think they can really reverse that pretty quickly, especially if they do a good job in this draft.
Well, and the key, again, it always comes down to, even if you've got a healthy offensive line and you've got a good defensive secondary, what's the quarterback situation? Is there a trust in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, or is it an experiment this year?
This Hurts thing is pretty interesting because I like Hurts. I think Hurts can play. And I if I'm the Eagles, and I'm glad, it looks like anyway, so far, them trading down to 12 kind of suggests that they're going to give him a shot. I think they should give him a shot. To me, he's got that Tebow in him, where he's a better quarterback than Tebow.
Right.
He's just a winner. He just wins all the time. He wills his team to win, but he's got way more skill than Tebow had.
Well, and he's got a confidence. It's not an arrogance. It's a confidence. Again, he comes from Alabama. He won a lot there, right? He gets it, and he never seems rattled. And again, even when he had some bad games last year and he threw some interceptions, he doesn't ever really feel or look rattled. Now, again, you don't know how it's going to be when you combine a new coach, his system, with this quarterback. And it may be a marriage, a beautiful marriage, or it just may not fit. But you're not going to know until you get a season under your belt.
I look at it like this. The house is on fire. Hurts is running in to save everybody. The house is on fire. Wentz was getting out of the building and saying someone else take care of getting the bodies out of there.
Well,
have that personality that he wanted out of there in the worst way. And I said before, I get it. Maybe this just wasn't the area for him. Maybe he just got tired of the fans being just so passionate and so into it. You break wind and those fans know if it's smelled or not.
But Gil, I told you this. He was set up to fail after Foles wins that Super Bowl. It's just, you can't your plateau is you better win a Super Bowl because the backup just did. And when you're set up to fail, Mike. I don't, it wasn't his fault. It was circumstance.
Todd, it was an unduplicated situation in real. I mean, I guess the only other thing you could compare is when Phil Simms, Hostetler came in and won that Super Bowl for the Giants. But then Hostetler went. I don't remember what that whole dynamic was like afterwards because I was too young to kind of and there wasn't social media and all of that. And by the way, Hostetler didn't get a bronze statue out front, and it also wasn't the team's first ever Super Bowl. Right. They already had a Super Bowl, so this team had never won a Super Bowl. They were the redheaded stepchild of that division, the only one that never had the Super Bowl, but had a lot of success, but just never won that game. For him to win that game and then for the kid to have to come it just was a no-win situation for him.
And it's a shame because, again, leading up to that until Carson got injured, he had a really good year. He had a great year. And then you get injured, your backup comes in, which he's supposed to do. You want your backup to come in and play well. But to your point, Mike, all of that history, again, it's just a shame because I'm not saying Wentz did everything right. There's no question about that. I'm not saying that. And he didn't play well in certain scenarios as well. But I just think mentally it broke him down. And I just think he needed a new place, a new city, a new fan base, new expectations, different. And I think that break was needed. But I'm not sold on Jalen. I like him as a player. I don't know that, when we talk about the NFL, Mike, you need one of those top 4 quarterbacks. Is Jalen Hurts one of those top 4 quarterbacks? I don't think he looks like that. And so, you're always striving to be a team that gets one of those guys.
All right. That's where we'll kind of end it today. Todd will be with me throughout. We'll have some random just moments where we just kind of riff, talk about it, what's going on, this and that, have a little fun. Yep.
You didn't even bring up the earthquake that I had to go through at 4:45 a.m. this morning.
Well, I didn't know about it.
Oh, my God. I can't believe it didn't get over the news. I woke up to go to the bathroom, believe it or not, at 4:35.
You dropped that deuce at 4:45.
No. I'm getting older. The prostate. I had to take a piss. You know what I'm saying? But it's 4:35. I go back to bed. I'm still awake. 4:45. It always feels like a truck hits your building. That's all it is. It's kind of like, whoa, the building shouldn't be moving. Somebody hit our building. But that's what it was. And it was a 4.0. And it hit in South Bay, right in my southern part of LA. It was a good one today. It was a good one.
Wow. I wonder if my man Jeff Bone and Pookie, who watches our show from Southern Cal, he said this earlier, man, y'all don't understand how popular the Eagles are in Southern Cal. We're deep out here.
Yeah, we are deep. We got many. Well, I don't know how they're going to work the bar situation moving forward, but we did have a lot of Eagles bars out here. Yeah.
Well, I did not know that. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding with you. No, we're good. Come on, who you kidding? It was a little shake, rattle, and roll. I was right back to sleep. I didn't care.
All right, man. We'll hook up again soon.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right, that's Todd Rank, and of course the Sports Bash is live, 97.3 ESPN. We'll have some more fun with Todd, just randomly. We'll just pick our spots. We'll do some stuff. You guys always ask whatever happened to Todd. Well, he's there now that we do the video. You can watch the show. It's a lot easier for us to kind of do this. He could be out there. I could be here. We could do the show, kind of pick and choose our spots. So we'll do that. When we come back, we got our 5 sounds of the day. Good guest today, Hudrick, Kaplan, Bob Wankel, and I got another Sports Bash cash code for you coming up at 5:55. All right, here we go. Here's our 5 favorite sounds of the day from our great panel of guests. Bob Wankel was on with us, talking a little Phillies, said this about the Phillies lineup.
Just an advanced approach, a mature approach with this kid, and he delivered in that spot there, and I think it speaks volumes about where he's at and his development as a hitter, and Joe Girardi, and I think a lot of people in that organization know it. And I think that ultimately you may see Alec Boehm end up moving into that 4 spot because I think he can give you potentially, and this is no knock on JT Realmuto, but I just think maybe more consistently good at bats and avoid prolonged stretches of slumps and protect Bryce Harper.
How about that? I like Boehm a lot. I talked about it before the season. I'd hit Boehm 3. I would probably go with JT or Harper in the 2-hole and then go with Boehm 3.
The Alec Boehm thing fascinates me, Mike, because of the fact that when you think about what that guy is right now, he's your young stud. It's been a while since his team had a legitimate young stud hitter. We thought it was going to be Rhys Hoskins, then he's fallen apart, basically. We hoped it was Scott Kingery, then he messed up his swing. Now your next hope in whatever reality it is, it's Alec Boehm.
I like Boehm a lot. I love his approach. I love what he brings to the table. He's old school type of hitter. I like what Bob said there. I would even think about hitting him in the 3-hole. That's,
it says something that you would consider him in the 3-hole for as young as he is.
Yeah, and I mean, years ago, you probably wouldn't consider that, but even guys like Ronald Acuna and guys like, Carlos
Correa down in Houston.
There's a ton of young players that are now the faces. Tatis is the guy I'm thinking of out in San Diego.
Yeah.
That these guys are young and they're the team.
Tatis almost got injured over the weekend, too. You see that?
I did not see that.
He was running backwards to catch the ball, and he ran to his teammate, and his teammate took the brunt of the hit when they went to the ground and caught him.
Don't want to see that.
And so Tatis ended up being fine, but his teammate was not doing too well.
Adam Kaplan, which quarterbacks, if the Eagles don't take one at 12, which I hope they don't, then what?
Kellen Mond, who I know a lot of coaches around the National Football League like. That's the area where Mond might go off the board. Ellinger a little bit later. There's some good mid-rounders.
Give me a quarterback that you like that's not one of those first-round guys.
Well, he brought up one of the guys I like. I like the idea of Sam Ellinger because he's a competitor. He's a guy that people in the locker room gravitate toward. He's somebody who, if you're looking for maybe a shorter long-term backup for Jalen Hurts, that makes sense because he's a similar mobile quarterback. He's not as athletic as Hurts. He's not as accurate as Hurts, but he is that similar kind of player. And I'm a big believer, Mike, in the idea that your backup should at least emulate the starter in some way.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. You have any interest in Trask because of the relationship with Brian Johnson?
I think he goes a little too high for the Eagles.
Where do you think he goes?
I think he's a 2nd or 3rd round pick.
So if the Eagles took him with one of their 2 second-round, 3rd-round picks, would you be okay with that?
If it's a 3rd round pick, yes. Anything higher than 3rd, I would be distasted in that.
So is Trask your 6th quarterback, or do you like him better than one of the 5?
Oh, no, he's definitely not the better one of the 5. The 5 at the top.
He's an interesting story, Trask.
Trask is because he wasn't recruited out of high school.
Didn't even start in high school,
right.
Really.
He was a guy who just kind of fell into the job. My problem with Trask is I feel like he's too much of a byproduct of that Florida system. Like if he didn't have guys like Pitts and Tony to throw to, is he still putting up those numbers?
Good point. By the way, Pitts was pretty outlandish today. Basically suggesting that he will be the best tight end in history.
Hey, you'd rather the guy be confident than not, right?
Just saying. Might regret moving out of 6 if he's the best tight end in history.
I told you, he reminds me of Tony Gonzalez.
I would have taken him at 6 if he had the opportunity. Paul Hudrick was on the show.
I think the one thing we've noticed with Doc and Ben is that Doc he's going to defend Ben in public. I think that's just going to be the way he is. He's going to defend him in public and then criticize him in private. I think that's kind of the way he operates. I think that's the way Ben Simmons kind of likes it to operate. And I think that's the way Doc Rivers likes it. So I think that's a good relationship there. I think that's what they kind of do.
Story the other night really about why that came up is essentially Doc Rivers told the media, hey, I think you guys and the fans are a lot more concerned about Ben Simmons scoring than I am.
I like the way he painted it, though, Paul. He says, look, this is who Doc Rivers is. He's not going to give you the bulletin board material on Ben Simmons. He's going to defend his guy. And you know what? If that's what it takes to get Ben Simmons to buy in, then I'm for it. Because you know what? I'd rather the player be bought in than the guy go on the media and scold him than the player just be checked out.
You have a problem with him? I don't say a problem, but that the fact that he kind of did say the schedule has been a little bit of a issue.
No, because the schedule's been an issue for everybody.
Well, the schedule's not going away either. You got 4 road games coming up, followed by Brooklyn and the Clippers.
Listen, nobody talks about the fact that for a couple games there when the Miami Heat were playing a back-to-back, then a day off, then a back-to-back and a day off, how poor some of their guys look. Nobody cared about that.
All right, Josh has more coming up on game night, leading you up to, not into the national championship game, but he'll get you ready for that. Plus, Frank Close going to talk a little Phillies. Frank's on tomorrow with me with the mailbag, so we'll answer his mailbag questions tomorrow. Also tomorrow, Mike Tannenbaum is in the house, former Jets GM. He's got his mock draft going up tomorrow at ESPN Plus. He's going to do a whole mock opportunity for you guys to hear from a former GM on that Jets trade that just happened, by the way. So that's coming up tomorrow with me on the Sports Best. Frank Close coming up tonight for game night with Josh. Stick around, everybody. And don't forget, a Sports Bash Cash code word is coming up in just seconds.